Welcome to the Sunday Show After Dark. I'm your host, Forrest Valkai, and I am joined today by the brilliant and handsome Austin Archer. How are you doing today, my friend?
Dude, I'm doing great. I'm so good. How are you?
I'm all right. I am trying to crank through a video right now. We went to Borneo last year, and now I'm finally getting around to making that video happen. But all next week, I'm going to be in D.C. at the National STEM Festival, which everybody should support if you aren't already. If you're in the D.C. area, go there. It is the only good thing happening in Washington, D.C. this year.
Sounds like a bunch of nerd shit.
It is. It is the largest, most epic science fair, basically, for, high school kids who are smarter than many of the grad students I know, myself included. And these kids are just amazing. You know, they're the next future. They're the next generation of scientists and doctors and engineers. They're incredible kids, and they study and work so hard to make these amazing projects. And then they get to go to DC, show them off.
Is there an octagon there? Is there any place where I can watch someone get put in a triangle hold, or you know?
Is it possible? Can you pay to beat the crap out of somebody, or get a cool, refreshing Bud Light that the pool you boycotted just a couple of years ago, and now you have endorsing and sponsoring your event at on the lawn of the White House or whatever? Is
the pool blue? That's all I care about. Is the pool
is it
blue?
Bud Light blue or American flag blue or algae blue? Which that's who knows.
Let's keep it focused on the real issues here. Is the pool blue? It's not.
The horrors persist. And yet somehow, for now, does democracy. And, by the way, it's complete tangent that I've been on. I've been grumpy about so many things this week. And one of them was, we take calls sometimes on this show talking about Israel's ongoing genocide in Palestine, and why people think that isn't real, and why the word genocide doesn't apply. And now that they're spreading that genocidal intent up into Lebanon as well, people are still, saying, "Oh no, you don't understand. Tens of thousands of children being murdered. That's called self-defense. That's how that works. That's when terrorists do terrorism, the only reasonable response is mass murder and ethnic cleansing. There's no reason to say that's bad." And what I want to ask to those people because we still get those calls, they're rarer and rarer, because it's becoming less and less defensible and becoming more and more blatantly, painfully obvious that what they are doing is absolutely genocide. But I like to pose to folks out there that are still skeptical of this. What would you say if I or any other content creator, most especially if some Palestinian minister or politician of some kind, be it some Hamas agent or actually some real elected official, whatever, were to say come out and talk about how they need to defend their nation, and so for every tear shed by a Palestinian mother, 1,000 Israeli mothers must weep, and that all of Israel must burn. Imagine if that was said. Imagine if somebody were to actually say that. How would that make you feel? And would you think that it was reasonable to say that that is very, very clearly an admission of genocidal intent and absolute insanity? Well, surprise, here's the Israeli Security Minister Ben-Gvir, who tweeted this out a couple of days ago, saying, of Lebanon, for every tear of an Israeli mother, 1,000 Lebanese mothers must weep. All of Lebanon must burn. Our supreme duty is to protect the citizens of Israel and the soldiers of the IDF, and his commitment takes precedence over every other consideration. Enough with the ping pong. You don't win by measured responses and restraint. You need to go berserk, to obliterate, to crush the terror. So, again, just can't make it any more clear. Like I said, we've talked about this a few times on the show. We've taken a few calls about it. It never goes well for the caller. But this on top of the other statements by other elected officials in Israel over the year, we will reduce them to rubble. We're fighting human animals. The entire nation out there is responsible. The emphasis is on damage, not accuracy. Like, all of these things, not a single bit of aid will go in, only tens of thousands of tons of explosives. All of these quotes on top of the massive civilian death toll, on top of the numerous reports of sniper bullets in the heads of children, on top of the numerous documented accounts on video of double tap strikes in order to target and kill aid workers and medical professionals and reporters. On top of all of this, we now have this as we are moving now into Lebanon and doing the same shit. And also have statements from ministers in that government saying, we're doing the same shit. Just clear cutting, slash and burn, bomb and destroy, huge acres and acres and acres of land, demolishing residential neighborhoods, demolishing whole cities in order to prevent any life from being there so that you can have a safe buffer zone. Well, where the fuck is the safe buffer zone from you?
Yeah, but Forrest, don't you know that that's not the only place in the world where bad stuff is happening? There are pride parades going on in every city in America right now, and there's kids at those things, Forrest.
Oh, my God. Oh,
they're having little kids walk around seeing people with all different kinds of colors of hair and with septum piercings. Who knows what pronouns, okay? So, sniper fire and getting pummeled by drone strikes every day of your life, that's bad. But people walking around with a flag I don't like, with their little...
I mean, come on.
I mean, it's what I'm trying to say is it's bad all around, It's
just... we've got that going on that half of the world. We've got, fascism and terrorism and Nazism and insanity happening on this side of the world because we have a cult that worships a senile billionaire pedophile. What's frustrating is that everything you just said, Austin, wasn't even an exaggeration or a joke of the shit that I know you and I deal with on threads where we're like, hey, here's some real serious shit happening in the world. And the next thing is, yeah, but I heard on Newsmax that a trans person peed nearby, and that's a serious issue for me. And they're like, hey, we have, here's a real truth for you. We have record numbers of suicides in ICE detention. We have, during the first administration, we had an investigation, I believe Ossoff did, showing unnecessary and non-consensual gynecological surgeries on numerous ICE detainees because one doctor who didn't even have a fucking medical license got to have fun and do it because the administration didn't vet him at all. They was like, hey, you look like you want to hurt some people, get in here. And now we have people being rounded up by their skin color, rounded up based on their accents, being thrown into cages. They're flooded with urine and feces, being fed rotten, maggoty, mold-infested food, if they're fed at all, denied medical care. We have credible accounts of rape, torture, sexual abuse, including abuse of children, from Amnesty International, the ACLU, multiple internal whistleblowers, multiple U.S. citizens that have been unlawfully detained because they were brown and nearby. All of this piling up, and we're still funding genocide in the Middle East. And the thing that's pissing MAGA off is that somebody, when you call this show, we're going to ask you what pronouns you prefer. And that's a fucking crisis.
No,
it happens every week.
And it's not an exaggeration. I just responded to a woman today on TikTok with a video who she literally starts out her video by being like, hey, come with me into the belly of the beast. We are going into enemy territory. And it's just her walking down the street in Springfield, Missouri at their Pride festival, and it's like the most tame Pride festival I've ever seen in my life. It's literally just like a farmer's market with rainbow flags, and it's just people like strolling down the street. And her commentary, her narration of the video is honestly like, guys, it's so much more shocking in person. She's like, I was going to just tell you what I was seeing, but I felt like the only way to get it across to you is just to show you, because she's like, I have no words for how shocking what I'm looking at is. And I was like, I just responded, I go, do you know what it looks like in Lebanon right now? Do you know do you know what it looks like in Gaza? Like, do you understand that actual hell on earth exists right now? And it isn't just people walking down the street saying hi to each other and like buying homemade jewelry at a little stand. It's so fucking crazy. Nationalism and ethnocentrism are an absolute scourge. It really is, and it's something that we deal with here in America. And it's this idea that thing that the security advisor said, it is our foremost calling to defend Israelis. And what that means is we will do anything and everything we want in the name of quote unquote defense. But Americans feel the exact same way. I was watching this video the other day, and this guy was talking about 9/11, and he said, don't get me wrong, it's the worst thing that's maybe ever happened in my lifetime or ever will happen. And I was like, how fucking like nationalist and ethnocentrist to just be like, the 3,000 people that were killed who were my countrymen is the worst thing that will ever happen in my lifetime. And it's like, it's one of the worst attacks to happen on American soil in your lifetime, and likely to be one of the worst attacks to happen on American soil in your lifetime. But also, like, not even, got more time in the game, but also like, you understand that that's happening. The equivalent of that is happening in other places in the world, like every single day right now. Right. It's just so myopic to be like, when it happens to me and people who are on my team, there are no fucking teams, you guys. Race is a social construct. Borders are made up. It's so stupid.
It's just so frustrating. And like, it really is bothersome. And I love that framing, because like, that's something that I feel like people don't understand. 9/11, we had, what was it, 3,000, around 3,000 casualties. So like, 3,000 people dead, and we're talking about 60,000 people. We're talking about 30,000 children, and that's just in Gaza, and those are outdated numbers. And we're talking about, and just like you said, every day, 9/11, every day, buildings brought down that you've known your whole life, thousands of people dead, people maybe even that you knew and loved. And not, I live in California and this happened in New York, and I've never been to New York, but I hope to visit someday. I'm talking about people in your backyard, because remember, the United States is real big, right? The size of a state is bigger than the size of many countries. And so like, you've got people dying in ridiculous mass numbers every single day all around you. You don't know where the next bomb is going to strike. Numerous intentional attacks on schools, churches, hospitals, residential areas. You don't know how long you and your family have, and the threat is present and real and extreme all the time. But fuck, man, I mean, those gas prices, huh? But
well, and you like, be mad about the gas prices too. Be mad about the fact that we just lost that war that we didn't need to be in. Be mad about the fact that it cost us hundreds of billions of dollars and we killed a bunch of innocent people for no reason. But
I'm mad.
But what are you tripping about fucking Pride Month again? And it's this woman that I responded to called it Sodom and Gomorrah. She's like, it really is so shocking to walk through Sodom and Gomorrah. I have a question for the theists who are calling into our show right now that I'm curious if you have an answer to. First of all, do you agree with her that that's Sodom and Gomorrah, people just walking down the street? Is that in your head, is that what Sodom and Gomorrah looked like to you? Is just neighbors enjoying the nice weather, pleasantly greeting each other, strolling down the street, exchanging
God, they're giving out scones.
Right,
Burn
yeah.
it.
And is that what it looked like? And you're cool with the fact that your God eliminated an entire city of men, women, and children, families, infants, because of that kind of behavior. But my other question, my follow-up question is, if that is the case and that is your belief, why is it not happening today? How come your God did all of his wrathful magic shit back in the Bible times, but nowadays he just lets us roam free, rampantly sinning, walking around waving to each other and saying hello? How come he's not? What happened to the interventionalist God that you believe in? Why isn't he commanding you to up and leave these cities and turn you into salt lest you commit the sin of looking back at them? Where did he go? If this is what Sodom and Gomorrah was, why was he so about that enforcer life back then, but he's nowhere to be found now? Where'd he go? And also, how come people strolling down the street in Springfield, Missouri, saying hi to each other is more evil to you than what's going on in Lebanon and Gaza?
That's the big. I have a million more questions. I have to step away for 2 seconds. I know we just started the show. I'm sorry. We have a ton of calls in the queue. They've been piling up while we've been sitting here rambling. I'm gonna let you pick the first call. I'm gonna be right back. I just gotta grab a thing, but I'll be back in like 2 minutes, and I'll let you begin. Is that cool?
You got it.
Cool. Be right back.
All right, we are going right now to our first theist caller who says that they have supporting evidence for a God. Very interesting. This is Brier from Virginia using they, them pronouns. Brier, hello, how are you? You are on with me, Austin. Forrest will be back shortly. How you doing today?
Right now to our first theist caller who said, hi.
What's up, Brier?
What's up, Brier? Nothing much. I'm just figuring out technology. I don't want to have too much audios overlapping, but I wanted to be able to look at you guys as you talk.
Yeah. It's okay. First of all, like, I was a little surprised to see your they, them pronouns, just because it's not typical for theists to call in. But that's not to say that there aren't non-binary Christians out there or theists, and that there aren't queer theists. There are. I've certainly met them. But, you know, happy Pride to you, Brier. And what is your supporting evidence for a God?
So it mostly goes around the idea of, like, it starts with the cosmological argument and then kind of moves towards a claim about some sort of metaphysical foundation. And then I kind of use that as a jumping off point to then talk about the problem of consciousness and rationality.
Okay, so start at the cosmological argument. That's what you said you started off with. Tell me about that.
Okay, so the cosmological argument that I'm going with is the idea that, like, we live in a contingent reality is like premise one. Do you agree with that, or do you have problems right there?
What do you mean by that? We live in a contingent reality?
Like, in physical reality, all things that we know to exist, at least as far as I'm aware, are dependent on something else to exist. They could have failed to exist.
You mean like are you talking about determinism, that everything needs a prior action in order for it, like, you know, like A leads to B leads to C, that like you can't have a thing in motion without it being set in motion? Is that what you're talking about?
It's kind of similar. I would say, like, for example, morality is dependent on a human mind to think about morality. Human minds are dependent on, you know, evolution or the process of developing that mind, and biology. All of biology is dependent on chemistry. Chemistry is dependent on atoms, like so forth and so forth. Like, all these things require the thing before it to exist. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fine. How do you reverse engineer that and get back to an intelligent designer? How do you get back to a God from that?
So I don't go straight to intelligent design. I would say this is supporting evidence, not necessarily like all the way to intelligent design, more so that it goes to the point of like infinite regress, and then you stop at a terminus. Cosmological promotes the idea that there is some sort of like metaphysical grounding. Then I move on to, like, I start with that argument. If we can clear that, I move on to conscientiousness.
Well, I don't think we have cleared that. That's the problem. You're just sort of saying, like, if we agree to agree on that, you move on to the next thing. But, like, we haven't cleared the first one. We can't move on until we've cleared the first one. You know what I mean?
Yes, I agree with, Yeah, I agree with what you say there. So, like, if you have a problem with the cosmological argument, then the rest of it's kind of null and void.
Right, totally. So you're gonna need to sell me on premise one before we move on all the way down the rabbit hole. Like, we need to like be able to first finish premise one and go, oh, I get how you're getting that. Agreed. Now let's move on. But you're not selling me yet on premise one. You're just positing like a hypothesis, an idea, but you're not offering me the evidence as to why I should accept premise one and accept that hypothesis before moving on.
Okay, so let me try to use some better terminology. I'm not great at like speech in real time, so I'm sorry if it's a little difficult, but I'll try a little bit better. So like I would kind of start with like the universe contains contingent things, i.e. planets, people, particles, laws, fields, events, arrangements, state of affairs that could have been otherwise. That would be my first claim. My second would be contingent things do not seem to explain their own existence fully. They point beyond themselves to prior conditions, deeper structures, or more fundamental explanations. An explanation comprised of any contingent thing is incomplete because every member of that chain still depends on something else. Therefore, either reality is ultimately a brute fact with no deeper explanation, or there is something necessary, like some necessary foundation that grounds contingent reality.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with even getting to like it's one of those two things. We're still with that. We're nowhere near establishing like, oh, cool. Therefore, ipso facto, the thing outside of the contingent reality that is the ultimate beginner of all contingent, the causal chain basically is God. I'm just as like it's just as probable that the universe is a brute fact that it just is. It just or than it is that it's the other thing. Like we're still not at premise one. It's just sort of like, yeah, it could be either of those two things. It could be something completely different. Most atheists that I know are totally all right accepting that we can't see beyond the event horizon of the singularity and the Big Bang and just going like, I don't really know what happened before that. I don't really know what like the causer is, what the previous circumstances of that are to create the expansion and to give movement to entropy. But that doesn't mean I'm going to fill in the gap with some kind of supernatural deity or creator or extra physical super intelligent being. Do you know what I mean? So I'm still having a hard. I know you want to move on from premise one, but I'm having a hard time latching into like the validity for premise one. It's like, hey, I'm totally all right with you looking at the universe as deterministic and saying, as far as I can tell, there's nothing that can come into being without it being caused by a previous action. I'm with you on that, and I feel like it's hard to argue against hard determinism. I like to believe, just because it's fun for me, that humans and sentient species are like agents that are capable of creating causal pathways that wouldn't exist without our sentience. But I can't prove that. It's just fun for me to think that. But with all of this, it's like we just get to the realm of like, I don't know what goes beyond a certain point, beyond a certain event horizon. And it sounds like what you want to do is follow a chain that gets you to, I do know what it is, and I have evidence for it. I mean, your call literally says, I have evidence supporting a God. And that thing beyond that event horizon is a God. And I'm just not sure how we get there if we can't even sign off on the first premise. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I understand where our miscommunication is happening. So my premise one is essentially there's a metaphysical grounding, and that's just kind of like that's the precursor to the rest of the stuff. And then like if we can agree that there's a metaphysical grounding of some kind, not necessarily that it's God, that's intelligent, that it's an agent.
We can't agree on that. That's the problem. I will for the sake of just moving the call along, because I don't want us to get stuck on this thing for too long. I will say,
yeah,
let's just pretend that I do agree. I don't, just for the sake of clarity. I don't agree that the universe is based in a metaphysical grounding. But let's just say I do, just to hear where you're going next.
Okay, I think that works, and then we might be able to circle back to that after if that becomes like a pop-up problem. The rest of it
we
might
almost
make sense
certainly
once
will,
they continue.
because it is a foundational problem, unfortunately, Brier, because wherever we go, it's going to come back to, cool, well, I don't accept the initial premise, and you have failed to demonstrate sufficient evidence for me to accept the initial premise. So cool idea, but it doesn't really matter. But I am just curious anyway. Take me into the next part.
Okay, so the next part kind of goes on to the problem of consciousness. We first posit consciousness exists. Consciousness is not merely behavior, because behavior can be described from an outside perspective while experience exists from the inside. So physical science can describe structures, relations, mechanisms, and functions from like third person, but consciousness exists purely first person. So we don't really have a reason as to why all these processes have a first person experience versus not. Like, it could have been unconscious. Does that make sense?
Sure. No.
Yeah.
Sorry, I came back.
No, go ahead.
I came back to the call, and we were talking about contingency, which is just
I'm literally just going along with it because
the
I already
contingent
know the premise is the premise doesn't work, but yeah.
The contingency thing, and I know we just covered this. I'm not trying to drag us back, but it is just the Thomas Aquinas version of the Kalam cosmological argument. It's the same stuff in a different trench coat, and now we're talking about consciousness as if like emergent properties don't exist, and that's like a whole thing. You've lost me twice here, Brier. I'm sorry. I know I just got here. I don't mean to be a jerk immediately upon meeting you, but like this doesn't make any sense to me either.
You're all good. Like I said, I'm not great at this. I do feel like there might be some sort of miscommunication happening. It might be definitions. So like, I know I was using the term metaphysical grounding earlier. That might be what's like causing a problem. I would just say
it sounds like
for sake of
it sounds like these are arguments that are compelling to you, and that's important to me. Like I don't expect every caller to be some great debater, because like at the end of the day, if you're like a awesome debate bro, that doesn't mean you're right. It just means you're good at arguing. You know what I mean? So I want to give you all the leeway in the world here and try to flesh out what you're actually talking about. So if this is a thing that matters to you, and it makes sense to you, and it's compelling to you, then you don't have to worry about being good at this stuff. As long as you're being honest and you're answering questions, we're going to get along just fine. So when we talk about consciousness, and you're talking about like, well, physical sciences, they describe all these different, individual properties of all these things. Consciousness is an emergent property. And so to compare that, take, for example, the tides, right? You can't go bottle up what the tide is. You can't say, unless you go to the supermarket and use it to wash your clothes, I guess. But like, you can't say this is tide. I have now here in my hand a cup of tide, right? That doesn't make any sense. The tides are the emergent property, not just of the gravitational pull of the moon, but also the rotation of the Earth, and also the tidal locking of the moon with the Earth, and also the structure, the structure of water molecules that allows them to be polar and form hydrogen bonds with each other and be cohesive with each other and adhesive to other things. Each step of this, from the molecular to the astronomical, plays a part into the combined phenomenon that we call the tides of the ocean going in and out every day, right? It's the same thing when we talk about consciousness. We don't know exactly, I can't give you some consciousness in my hand, right? But we know how individual neurons work. We know how they work in clusters. We know how different parts of the brain and other parts of the central nervous system and peripheral nervous system work and how they contribute to this. We know how gut microbiota play a part and how hormones play a part and all these different things that come together to provide the emergent property, the combined total effect of of our consciousness. So just because I can't sit here and give you a perfect explanation for every little bit of it doesn't make it magical, doesn't make it special, and it certainly doesn't imply that because I don't know this, that tells me something about the beginning of the universe or some guy who lives in outer space whipping up planets and cares about who I have butt sex with. Does that make sense, Brier?
Yeah. So a couple things there, because I think your tide analogy is actually really useful for the potential disconnects that's happening here.
Great.
And I think talking to you about this specifically because you're a biologist, correct me if I'm mistaken. I feel like you might be able to give me some information that might help me bring this along better. But so you were talking about how tide, it seems like a magical thing up front, and then later we learn all these other things that kind of cause the tides to exist in the first place, all the way down to the molecular level, all the way to the astronomical. Like it's a very significant process. The consciousness argument that I'm kind of placing here is that in the tides, we have reason to expect the tides to have formed if we knew all the other information. However, with like the human experience and the human brain, I would say that the biology of the brain does not necessarily explain why it had to have been first person. And I do see how that can get close to kind of like a God of the gaps argument. I am trying to avoid that. Like I'm painfully aware of that.
And what I'm trying to get across to you here is, number one, even if I really wanted to dig into this, I would just say I don't know any other way that you could possibly experience your own consciousness other than first person. But more importantly, I don't think that's interesting for this thing. I think what's more important is to say, before we knew all that shit about the moon and everything, it was very obvious. The big question was, what's causing this pattern and what's causing it? It must be Poseidon. There must be some guy, right? And so as much as you're trying to avoid it, I feel like a God of the gaps argument is exactly what you're landing on here.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, but I'm trying to remember exactly what you said because I think it was really interesting.
Brier, can I ask you a question?
Do you remember? Yeah, what's up?
Have you always been a theist, or is this something that like you've kind of gone in and out of?
It really depends. So I started out as I was raised Christian, and I spent a long time deconverting from that. And then I went into kind of like a Buddhist, like Taoism, kind of like flow thing for a while. And I would say a lot of my beliefs still currently sit on Taoism, which doesn't necessarily posit agency in its God claim.
Okay.
And that's kind of where like I'm not trying to give support and evidence for like a Christian God or like an Islam God. Or necessarily even a creator.
It didn't strike me as that. That's why I asked. You sound like an explorer who's trying to like find their way through this and trying to trying to come up with a story around it that works for you specifically. But what it sounds like to me is that this is a thing that you're like really trying to make work. Like it's something you really want to have in your life. And I get that. It's very human. That's why this stuff exists. That's why we have this show. But you called in saying evidence for a God, and what it sounds like you're offering us is your current kind of epistemology that you've crafted over years of like looking at different disciplines and different stories, and you're offering us a roadmap to how you arrive at this belief, but there is no tangible evidence in this that goes any further than any of the, typical Christians that call into the show. I think you come off to me as a more thoughtful person, a more eloquent person than we typically get to talk to on a weekly basis. But at the end of the day, it still sounds to me like it's just something you want, and that's okay. But there's no evidence here that I'm seeing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I do appreciate the comments as well. I think for me specifically, a lot of this like thought process has gone through trying to battle with the idea of infinite regress for a while, because it's like a really uncomfortable idea for me. And brute fact just never kind of really worked for me either. So I've just been circling those ideas for a long time and trying to figure out where I kind of fall. I'm perfectly fine with, the mystery question that I have eventually being solved by some physical law. Like that would be okay for me. And I suspect that that's probably where it would go. The idea of this argument was to kind of say, like, for example, if that baseline physical law existed and that was like the non-contingent thing, then the next two arguments, which I know we got hung up on, kind of posit that consciousness is maybe more fundamental than we think, maybe more irreducible, and rationality might be more fundamental and more irreducible. And therefore, that physical law might contain both consciousness and rationality, not necessarily agency.
Cool idea. How do you demonstrate that? I mean, or sorry, what were you
also
gonna say?
Well, I was going to say, how do you, if an infinite regress is such a concern for you, how is that not a massive risk with what you just said? Because if consciousness is this fundamental thing, then from whence did the consciousness come to be fundamental? It's like when people say that talk about complexity, you know what I mean? And they're like, well, if something's complex, there must be an even more complex thing that made it, and therefore God made all this complexity. And I'm like, okay, well, if God is more complex, then what the fuck made that guy, right? And so you either end up with like an infinite regress, something is more complex, there's some higher and higher and higher consciousness, something even more fundamental and more fundamental and more fundamental, whatever it may be, or you get a dogmatic thing that just you are not allowed to question this anymore. This is just, you don't talk about this, or you end up with special pleading and you say, nope, this is the one thing that's different. Everything is fundamental up to this thing. It's like the contingency thing. Everything is contingent. There must be a prime mover that isn't contingent, which means everything isn't contingent anymore. It's everything except for this guy.
It's also still a brute fact thing. When you get down to the prime mover is the thing that exists outside of the contingency, that prime mover becomes the brute fact thing, that it's like God just is the isness of being. Like God is the thing that was always there. And you still have to deal with that. And again, we're nowhere closer to proving any of it.
And so like where I'm at with it, dude, is that like you are going to end up in the same issue as just about any other religious claim like this. And there's plenty of things where you look at like the primary assumptions of science, of naturalism, of the concept of uniformitarianism and whatnot. Like you can make that same argument. You can say, well, yeah, you haven't checked every single place in the universe, blah, 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 blah. But what's going on there was we are still working with actual information and actual data. And we're saying the trend in the data is this. So we're just going to carry on with that until we find something else. By bringing a metaphysical argument or a supernatural argument here, you are starting with no data and then making a conclusion anyway. And so I think for you, the fact that you're willing to spend this time to think this out is really good. I think, and the fact that you are so put off by an infinite regress is very promising. I would just encourage you to treat these questions the same way you would treat the question if I were to come to you and say, of a totally natural process, no, actually the universe is just the way it is because of the way it is, and it's actually just, it isn't its fundamental nature to exist in these ways, and there's no, and you would be like, those are some awfully big statements, and it's much more honest to just say, we don't know why things are this way, and we're trying to figure it out. I would then say exactly to you, I think you're making some really big statements here that sound logical until you dig into them a little bit more. And I think it would be much more honest and much more clean for you to just say, I don't fucking know what's going on here, yo, and I would like to know someday. But until I'm shown that supernatural things are possible, I'm not going to believe in supernatural things.
I think I get what you're saying. I do think some of the initial comments were a bit of a category error in the sense of like the argument is not necessarily like I posit a grounding and therefore I try to justify it. It's more of a trying to follow a logical roadmap and coming to the idea that a necessary thing must exist. We can't positively describe it as of now. We don't have evidence for positive description. But the idea that a necessary foundation exists somewhere, like it could just be brute fact. It could be the universe is just is. That is completely within reason and is honestly the most likely. The following, like if we said the universe is just is, the following arguments are generally trying to say that some of these other things that we posit in like agency and rational thinking minds might have existed before minds existed, which might mean that like the structure of matter, the way matter interacts with itself and each other might have some sort of intrinsic property that mimics or is similar to a lot of agency God claims. So it doesn't get us straight to an intelligent design or straight to like a full God being, but it like puts it more on the table is kind of the idea.
And I had similar thoughts the first time I did shrooms. But the question is, do you have a single example, even a tiny example, of consciousness existing independent of matter at all?
I'm thinking.
Because if that's not possible, then what you're talking about isn't possible. And like, that's what I'm saying, man. If we're talking about something as goofy as, you know, the leprechauns burrowing under my house and digging up my vegetable garden, I'll talk about it all day long. But the first question is, do you have a single example of a leprechaun ever, anywhere, at any time? And if the answer is no, then that doesn't mean that it's impossible. It just means there's absolutely no reason to think about it or care about it or assume that it might even remotely be true. I haven't checked every rock in the entire universe to see if maybe Santa's somewhere, but until I find any example of a Santa Claus anywhere, I'm gonna assume my parents put the presents under the tree. You know what I mean? And like, go by that evidence. And so those are very neat ideas. And if you're into philosophy and you want to sit down and think about what it means to be a thing for a really long time, it's fun. I concede honestly and openly that what you're describing is fun to think about. But if it's not possible and you have no reason to believe that it's possible, I wouldn't waste your time with it, especially not when you're asking serious, real questions about the nature of the universe.
Was one of the questions you asked, do I have any evidence of consciousness existing separate from matter?
Yes.
Yeah. I don't, but I don't think I'm necessarily making that claim. I'm more so saying there's a fundamental thing that is matter and exists, and that might be like a brute fact termination of the universe. And then maybe consciousness is an immediate emergent property from that. Because more so the claim that I'm making is that consciousness may precede our current understanding of where it like originated in the timeline, if that makes sense.
Let me add one word to my question. Do you have any examples at all whatsoever of consciousness existing independent of living matter?
No, I think that's actually a really interesting question, because I think from a third perspective, you can't actually really prove that it doesn't. Like, if you think about AI nowadays, like, are we saying that that is conscious or unconscious? And if we posit a difference there, then I'd be really curious to see why that difference exists. Because like the way I'm defining consciousness is like a first-person experience. And like we can have all the processes of the human body without necessarily needing a first-person experience. Like you could essentially, like everything could be identical and you could just not have, like we could just not have first-person experience. And so
sure.
Like, I'm kind of like, if that's the case, if there's no like differentiation there, perhaps then, you know, consciousness might not be purely related to living matter, might not be purely related to matter, might be more fundamental, might be more irreducible. You know what I'm
saying? And that's a huge amount of might doing a whole lot of heavy lifting. But then again,
true, yeah.
I would ask you, what the hell does consciousness look like without first-person experience? That's another question that I would have for you. And also, if we're saying, well, AI is technically maybe kind of conscious if I think about it this way, then your premise wouldn't have worked before the 2000s. And like, what is that? You know, or whenever the hell AI was technically invented. And so like, before computers existed, you know, go back to the 1920s, there's no argument here anyway. And so like, just to me, man, it's a very fun high thought that is doing a ton of heavy lifting for your entire cosmology. And I don't begrudge you for having the fun with the thought. I just think you should not make it as serious as you're making it. With that, it's been about 30 minutes on this call. I think we've covered everything we're going to cover right now, and we got a bunch of people waiting. But Austin, do you have anything left for Brier? I know I just kind of jumped in here and just started talking a whole bunch.
No, I agree with what Forrest just said, and thanks, Brier, for the call. I think that what I hear in your call is just, you just want to know some of these things that we don't know because you're human, and humans are desperately curious little critters, and we have this desire to make sense of things, and that's why we create these stories around the things we don't understand, and that's the entire reason why we have the mythos of gods, and we're plugging them in anywhere we run into a wall of I don't know how to get past this thing. But basically, what we're advocating for on this channel is just it's not an honest way of going about finding truth. It's okay to say there's a limit to the amount of things that I'm capable of knowing, and to be honest about that, you should say, therefore, if I cannot demonstrate in any kind of substantial way that there is this metaphysical supernatural God entity outside of causal reality, I shouldn't believe in that thing. If it can't be demonstrated to me, I shouldn't just assume that it's there just because I want something to plug into that gap in my knowledge. That's why it's the God of the gaps. And it's something that I understand. I relate to it. I relate to like the process you're going through. I just think that you would arrive at somewhere a lot more authentic and honest if you could just set that down and go, you know what? Until it can be demonstrated to me in a way that actually makes sense and is substantive, there's no reason for me to believe that this thing is real.
That's exactly where I'm at. Anyway, Brier, we'll let you have the last word, man.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys. It was really fun to talk about it, and like both of y'all poked a lot of holes, especially into the consciousness argument. So that'll definitely be revised. I don't know if it'll withstand the pressure testing. Not gonna lie, but I really appreciate it, you guys, and I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you.
We're live every Sunday night. We actually have 2 or 3 shows going on Sunday, and we have a variety of different hosts. Some of them are nicer, some of them are meaner. So call back in and ask more questions, man. We're always welcome here.
Sometimes I'm the meanest one.
All right, thank you guys.
Take care, Brier.
Take care.
I'm trying to do it in the new thing. I think I hung up.
Yeah. All the buttons are working.
I don't like the fact that the new system doesn't have a timer. I was having to go into the old system anyway just to see how long we were on the call to try to keep it the right time.
Forrest, what do you think? I have a question for you. What do you think about determinism? What's your stance on it?
I think that the argument for it is interesting. And I think that there are equally interesting arguments against it. Now, I guess I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
But like the big thing so I get the concept.
Yeah.
And I like the way, especially Robert Sapolsky framed it as saying like, if you do a thing, we can trace that back to the millisecond before with your neurons firing. We can trace that back to a couple of hours before, what was your blood sugar like to cause that thing to happen? We can go back a few days before, what's your general hormonal balance, what's going on in your immediate life, go back weeks, what's your job like, what's your relationship like, go back years, what was your childhood like, what's the trajectory of your life, go back to how your parents raised you, go back to how their parents raised them, go back to what kind of culture they came from for thousands of years, go back to the origin of humankind, go back to the origin of the universe. We can build this chain that makes sense logically, and therefore we can say that every single thing has this deterministic streak. But I also think that the decisions that we do make, if indeed we make them, are constrained partially by the experiences that we have. There is potentially the ability to come up with a totally new idea and a totally new concept and to truly think outside the box and be original, let's say. But like, even if that wasn't the case, I gather new ideas every time I talk to people, every time I read a book, every time I go to a new class, and that shapes the kind of person that I am. And so like, I feel like that's an argument for more education and more experience being the same thing as more freedom and more ability, because it gives you more options with which to make decisions, and that is definitionally non-deterministic. But at the end of the day, it's hard to say.
it's really interesting because it's very paradoxical, I think, in nature. And Alex Garland with the show Devs, which I really enjoy, it's one of my favorite things he's ever made. He Alex Garland claims to be a hard determinist. Like in his mind, he's like, you can't get out of it. And it's exactly what you just said. He's like, we can track all this stuff and we can formulate this logical causal chain. So he claims to be a hard determinist, but what's so funny is he creates in that show a thought experiment that to me reveals the paradoxical nature of determinism. Basically, the show involves them creating a supercomputer, a quantum computer that can map all that stuff, everything that you just talked about, like everything that led to you making that decision nanoseconds before you made it to all the way 2 days before, 3 days before, back to your birth, back to the beginning of the universe. And because they create this computer that can map all of the data points all the way back to the origin of everything, they can also map it forward. And so forward and backward, they can render a video rendering of like perfectly what will happen 2 minutes in the future, 2 days in the future, 2 weeks in the future. And there's this great scene in the show where this guy shows a room full of programmers them 2 seconds in the future. And so the screen has them all going, what are we looking at? And then in the room in real time, they go, what are we looking at? And then another person in the room goes, on the screen, they go, turn it off. And then the person in the room goes, turn it off. And it's them like their brains kind of breaking because they're like, I don't like watching the screen say what I'm about to say. And then feeling my body say it because it makes me feel like I'm being puppeteered by, some kind of thing outside of my body. But that to me is the thing that breaks it. That's the thing to me that's like, I feel, and I can't prove this because we don't have access to a computer like this, but I feel like if you showed me a video of me and said, this is you in 10 seconds, you walk across the room and sit down, what I would do is I would immediately sit down and sit on my hands and go, just because of that, I'm not moving now. And I feel like I would be able to do that. Like, it just doesn't feel like some force in the universe would pick me up and force me to walk across the room and sit down. And it becomes this paradox because it's like, if the machine works, you could say, well, the reason why you didn't do it is because the machine showed you were going to do it. And that's the cause that created the causal. So that's the deterministic thing. But it's like, but then the machine doesn't work then because, you know what I mean? And it becomes this like, it either does or it doesn't. And
that is a really fun thought experiment. If this thing could make such a calculation, would it be possible to surprise the machine or to do something it didn't expect in this scenario? Yeah, that is very interesting. Yeah, and that's a lot of fun.
I know, it's fun. Yeah, I don't know that it gets us anywhere, but it's fun.
Did I ever tell you the remind me later? There was a equally fun thought experiment that knocked my socks off a little while ago. It was the Room of Insanity, and it's a lot of fun. It's great. We'll cover it later, or now, or sometime during this show. Just remind me at some point, and I'll give you another fun one because I love thinking about shit like that. I love thinking. Thinking's the best.
Yeah.
We have several other people on the what's. Can I remove this? Yes. Okay. The new system is the new system, and it's new. So I'm looking at, tell Jimmy Snow to put a fucking timer in it.
I'm looking at 3.
Interested. 3 is interesting. But 12 is also interesting. So it's either one for me.
Wait, I'm not seeing a 12.
I'm looking at the originals thing, and I'm only tinkering on it in the new thing.
Is 12 Jim?
Yes.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay. Yep. I'm gonna go over here and do it. Nope. Wait. What's the number? I just got to do it by the number because I can't. There it is. Okay. Here we are. Let's do Jim. Pronouns he and him, who is a theist who wants to talk about God and says he has a syllogism for God. Jim, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today? Jim, do we have you? Nope.
Jim.
I have him. See, on the old thing, it says that the call with Jim terminated. And on the new thing, it says that Jim is on the air right now.
Jim, are you there?
So,
can you hear us?
It says he dropped.
Okay.
Well, that sucks. I wanted to ask Jim a lot of questions. In that case, we're going to move over to Xeno. pronouns he and him, who is a polytheist who wants to talk about his evidence for God. Xeno, you are now on the air with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. How about you?
I'm all
Pretty
right.
good. Pretty good.
Good.
Do people
good.
ask you all the time if your name is short for Xenomorph? I'm sorry, I had to. I'm such a nerd and a dork.
No, they actually asked me if they asked me if I'm what is it, xenophobic? Which is as a
You scared of yourself? It's terrible.
Yeah. So what are you like?
Yeah, so we can just get.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about, Xeno?
Let's just talk about God. I think that's what this is about. So I'll just go ahead and start off with what. I'm sorry.
Which God and which God? Which is what I usually ask people who are monotheists, but you're a polytheist, so especially for you, which God?
So, well, let me start off by defining what I mean by God, because I can't really narrow it down. I'm not religious, by the way. So I just believe God is pretty much the developer of the logic of the world we live in right now. Does that make sense? Probably not.
I get what you're saying, because I hear it all the time from Christians.
Yeah,
so sure.
we're just talking. So we're just talking about the creator of logic, like logic in this world. So basically, like if you create a computer program, you can create the logic of that computer program. So that would make the creator God. So there could be many gods. I'm a polytheist because there could be many creators.
Yeah, if you start going Stephen Meyer on me, I'm gonna lose it. Be honest with you, because like that's where this usually goes, is to say like, well, you know, there's a code needs a coder, and you can't change computer code and change a computer program. Therefore, you can't change DNA and change an animal. And at the end of the day, there has to be somebody writing the language, because languages come from a mind, and like it gets so dumb so fast.
Well,
so I'm hoping we don't go in that direction.
Here's the thing. Well, I don't know who that is, but what I'm saying is that it might. Okay, well, it might be kind of boring, but yeah, I don't think God is like. I do think God is outside of time. If that's interesting, he's outside of not he, it, whatever, she, whatever. It's outside of our time, but it's still within a form of time. But God would basically be I wouldn't say just one being, but possibly many beings. Just like there's many different creators of a movie, we can't just narrow it down to one director. You know, you have to camera operators and such. So I just believe like God would be the basic reason for why the logic exists in this world, and that could be because of many different. Go on.
What does it mean? Because you said this God is outside of our time, but in a different kind of time, as if that's just a thing that we all know what that means. What is a different kind of time? What would that even possibly mean?
Okay, so a thought experiment would look like before the video game Halo was created, time existed. Mm-hmm. When Halo was created, the time in Halo begins to exist. So you're outside the time of Halo because you've made Halo.
But just to be clear, like when the game is running, are you saying like that as I'm sitting here playing the game, time is progressing in the game and also outside of the game? Yep. Or are you saying the timeline of the game, which at this point the game skips 5 years in the story, is the time within the game? So that's a different flow of time at a different rate. What are you saying specifically?
So what I'm saying specifically is that the programmer of Halo decided the way they want the time to progress in that game. So we could make 1 second 1 hour, or 1 second 5 hours, or 1 second 1 day, because the programmer, we're talking about time dilation. So you're able to configure the dilation, either tone it down, tone it up, because you are the creator of that. But the time in your world, you know, you're not necessarily able to change that global time dilation. But within the logic of the system you're creating, you are able to control for that global time dilation.
So I'm trying not to read too much into your analogy of a video game here, but with the consideration that we're talking about, if we're talking about a parent stream of time, and then some sort of intelligent designer creates a universe in which there is a predetermined and encoded and whatever tinkered with, manipulated substream of time that is only existing in this facet, in this thing, while the parent stream of time continues on, and this is it. That there is really no way to say that without sounding very, very, very close to just getting into like the whole simulation theory and maybe we're all in the Matrix. And like that's frustrating.
I think that's what we would. It's frustrating, but I think that's what we have to do when we're talking about things like this. Unfortunate as that may seem, we have to. Why? Because we're talking about the creator of logic. We're talking about a being or possible beings with an S that has also helped to create the logic in the system we live in.
Okay, so you've given us your definition. You said you would start off with your definition of God. You believe that there is some kind of software tech developer or a team of developers outside of the construct that we live inside, the simulation that we live inside. You called in saying you want to talk about evidence for that. So that's your definition of God. It's some kind of team of developers or a singular developer somewhere outside outside of whatever container our reality is inside of. What's your evidence that that is something we should take seriously as a hypothesis?
Oh, there's plenty of evidence. I'll start with one is most likely you guys are going to reject, but is the contingency argument. And,
God damn it, we just did this.
We just had this.
Yeah, I know. Well, we don't have to do it. Okay, we can do something else.
Well, can you give me a contingency argument that doesn't end in infinite regression or special pleading?
No. Well, I can. Well, special pleading. What do you mean? I know what special pleading is, but can you give me an example of it leading to special pleading?
Can you give me a contingency argument that does not end in this is contingent upon a contingent thing, which is contingent upon a contingent thing forever and ever and ever and ever, or everything is contingent except for the thing that made the universe, which does not have to be contingent? So can you give me either?
Yeah, sure.
Like, don't say this is the one thing that isn't contingent, and don't say this is contingent upon something else, something else, something else. Do you have that argument?
Okay. Yeah. So I would explain it this way. So the contingency argument is based off of the logic we already have. So that assumes that the logic beyond this system also contains contingency. So where things begin to change is where the logic actually changes. So the logic in this world, we can say, well, if I cook breakfast today, that the reason breakfast is there is because I decided to cook it, and you can keep rewinding it back further and further in the logic in this world. But we can't assume logic, the same principles we exist by today, is infinitely existing outside of our logic. And I know I haven't demonstrated that logic can exist outside of this universe, but that's my claim, is that logic...
My follow-up question, I apologize, I didn't mean to interrupt you. If you want to finish that thought, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just finish it really quickly. I just think there are a bunch of creators that put logic into this world. So the contingency part is happening from the logic that was put into this world. And once we get outside of that logic, there could be completely different rules where things are just non-contingent. So you can go on.
Mm-hmm. So
yeah.
My question is what you're describing here, because like that's you did what I asked. You gave me a way to frame this that doesn't fall apart with infinite regressions or special pleading. But the next question then is this falsifiable? Is there a way for me to say, okay, well, if X is true, then what Xeno just described cannot possibly be the case? And if so, what is that?
I'm not going to act like I have that right now. I don't have that right now. Not sure. I think, honestly, some things in this world we can't provide that evidence for, and that would be an ignorance fallacy, right? A appeal to ignorance. Like, if we don't have evidence for
let's
that
try
thing.
it. Let's try it from another direction then. Let's say instead of trying to say I don't know what could falsify this, so let's just ask, can I replace your philosophy, belief system, whatever can I replace this with something else that's definitively unfalsifiable and have it make any difference? So, like, instead of there's a higher order of reality, and that's where non-contingency happens, and things aren't deterministic, and there's logic outside of the universe. What if I were to instead say, you are just a brain in a jar being fed chemicals to believe this, or you are currently dreaming right now and you just don't, you think this is real, or you're in a fucking simulation in the Matrix or whatever. If I were to say these things, is there a tangible I shouldn't say tangible, is there a substantive, meaningful difference in the outcome or in the logic being used here?
Yes, I would say so. I would definitely say solipsism is possible, but I think what you're talking about is potentiality. So potentiality would be like, could Halo exist? Yes. And could Halo not exist? Also yes. So it just really depends on your intentions. So I think that the universe exists because there were...
It's not about intention. It's about reality. So, like, if I tell you right now, you are actually just a clump of brain cells in a laboratory somewhere in some other universe, and they're feeding you chemicals to make you conscious, like, believe this situation, this conversation isn't real. It's just a thing that some scientists in some other universe are doing to a cluster of brain cells in a jar. That's all your reality is. What is the substantive, meaningful difference between that claim and your claim that there's a higher order of reality and there's some logic outside there and some programmers are creating this world like a Halo game? What's the difference?
Okay. So in your example, it's perfect because although we could be a brain in a vat, those same scientists that's conducting the experiment and giving us all these thoughts could also have the potential to create other things. So the test only exists because they decided they had intentionality. You said it didn't have anything to do with intentionality, but the scientists have intent when they're feeding us thoughts. Could they have done something else? Yes. They could do multiple things. That's the beauty of it. You could create all sorts of things. So it's not just solipsism could be the case and it can't be anything else. You could also have the solipsist world while simultaneously holding to, creators of logic, creators that put logic into worlds. Well, that's a bad way of saying it. I would say instead of putting logic into a world, you're creating logic, and the logic becomes the laws of the physics of that world. Well, the world is just space. So when you put the logic in, it's like basically the reason you have gravity is because of the logic. But outside of that logic,
you did not answer my question.
You may not have gravity. Okay, try it again.
Well, I could say, okay, so literally everything you just said, but it's the same thing about a bunch of scientists in a new universe feeding chemicals to some brain cells in a jar. They could have done it. They could have made the universe anything they wanted. They just chose to put these chemicals in and make it look this way to you. It could have been anything else. And the programmer that you're talking about, or programmers or whatever, could have made the laws of physics, the laws of logic, the contingency, the blah. They could have done anything, and instead they did this thing. So, I'm trying to ask you, I do not believe, Xeno, that you think it's reasonable to say that we're actually, none of this exists and it's all happening in your mind, and you are a brain in a jar in some other universe being tinkered on by scientists, and your life will end when their experiment ends. I don't think that you would buy into that on a pamphlet on a street corner, right?
No. I think that's crazy to suggest that I have the answer for hard solipsism. Like, of course,
I'm not asking you to answer. I'm not asking you to answer hard solipsism. I'm not asking you to answer hard solipsism. No, I'm saying, what's the difference between that claim and your claim? What's the difference between me saying this is all a computer game, or you're actually crazy in a padded room hallucinating this right now, or you're a brain in a vat in another universe, or you're dreaming, or all of this came into existence last Tuesday with all the time stuff baked into it? Any of these other unfalsifiable claims, because there's a million unfalsifiable claims. Any of them.
So
what's the difference between any of them and your unfalsifiable claim?
Well, you're talking about the law of excluded middle now. So A doesn't equal B, right? A equals A. So we're talking about true and false, right? One thing can't be true, another thing, be true at the same time. You're saying what distinguishes that? That's basically what's true and what's false. What you're talking about is
why is yours true and why is his false?
How do you tell it's true or false if it's unfalsifiable?
Well, sadly, we have to take it up on faith.
Okay, is there anything that you couldn't believe based on faith?
Is there anything you couldn't believe based on faith? Yeah, sure.
What
could you not possibly believe based on faith?
I know you're going to disagree, but I personally believe that I know that I exist.
Sure.
I know that I exist. I don't know that I'm not in a simulation. I'm saying I know that I'm having an experience. I know that.
But but your experience doesn't prove your existence. You could actually be a fart from a galactic-sized creature that just happened to run into itself in these ways. Sure, but it's just I'm saying your body, you're all these things like. That's the only thing. If the only thing that you can have is cognito ergo sum, if that's the only thing that you can say for sure, and everything else is a faith-based claim, then faith is really useless, is the whole point. Whether you say nothing or that one thing, it is equally useless.
Well, you're saying it's equally useless, but you're just denying the law of identity at this point. Are you saying that the law of identity is wrong?
No.
Okay, so do you know that
to
be true, or do you? So do you know the law of identity to be true, or do you just think it's true, or are you taking it on faith?
Just to be clear, the law of identity, is, as far as I know, because I'm not a philosopher, is that a thing is identical to itself, right?
Yeah, A equals A. Right.
Gotcha. Okay, yeah. I just want to make sure. So, and by the way, Austin, I've been talking a long time. If you want to interrupt, you're welcome to it.
I'm just kind of sitting here and I'm like, man, Xeno, you said the word evidence, and you said, I want to talk about evidence for God. And I've asked for evidence several times, and all you're doing is just kind of going like, hey, couldn't it be something else? Like, and I'm like, sure.
Right. The law of identity, just to make sure I'm not dodging your question, the law of identity is something that I have evidence for, and we can get down to the nitty-gritty of it and say my evidence comes through my experience, and maybe I don't trust my experiences or blah blah blah, and we can go back to that same cognito ergo sum, and that's just fine. But at the end of the day, at least I can falsify everything I'm saying, and at least I can provide some sort of evidence for my beliefs, and it isn't just based on faith alone, which is what you're giving me here, is unfalsifiable things based on faith alone.
So can you?
And as Austin said, you said you were going to give. You said you were going to give us evidence.
Yeah, I think I've been kind of doing that, but I'll just be more direct. So, the evidence is basically life. It's biology. It's everything you see around you. I know that.
What in the world does that mean, Xeno?
And now we're at look at the trees.
Yeah,
what happened?
Well, yeah, because the trees it is evidence. It's evidence.
In
it's
what
not
way?
Evidence you know how to put together. Well,
trees are evidence that trees exist for sure.
Well, no, it's just like, let's just take a crime scene, for example. Like if you had a hair follicle, you had a piece of blood and some saliva. I mean, yeah, so that is definitely evidence for something, but you might not know what it's evidence of, but it is evidence. It's a reason to believe something. So like, it's to narrow down this God. It's gonna take more than just discussing the trees and, you know, we have atoms and you know, subatomic particles. I think this is evidence, but I'm trying to put it all together. Basically, I'm not going to take up too much more time, but basically what I'm saying is that the evidence in front of us, it's basically the atoms. It's basically gravity. It's the law of excluded middle. It's the law of non-contradiction. It's the fact
what you're talking about. What you're talking about is like what a lot of theists do. A lot of theists will call into the show and they'll ask us the question, why is there something instead of nothing? And you're basically just like citing like evidence of like there's stuff. And it's like, yeah, as far as we can tell, there is stuff. And we didn't start this show by saying, prove to us that stuff exists. Prove to us that that laws like gravity exist. We didn't, that was not what we asked. You're saying all that stuff,
but you did ask for evidence
for something outside. You're saying all that stuff is evidence for a designer or team of designers that develop software to develop the simulation we're living inside of. And that is not accurate. That stuff is not evidence of that.
So Austin, what evidence would you have if you looked at the Avengers or whatever movie? What evidence do you have that movie was directed? Within the movie itself, like let's say you can't see behind the camera, right? Like what evidence do you have that the movie was created?
But I can see. But also, I can see. I can watch behind the scenes footage of. That's the thing. That's the problem.
If you can.
And also, I can say like, it's just even if I couldn't, the cinematography, framing, and physical impossibility of certain actions, the fact that camera angles switch and there's continuity errors, and like these are things that we can put together from the film itself. But what you're describing here by saying, you know, the shit that happens around us and the shit that exists around us is evidence, we just don't know what it's evidence of, that's like not how inductive reasoning works. And like what I'm trying to get across to you here is
I'm saying I know what it's evidence. You guys don't know what it's evidence of.
I can start.
You said you do know what it's evidence of? Is that what you just said?
Yeah, that's why I'm arguing that it's just basically the byproduct. Everything you see here is the byproduct of a creator invoking laws into a system.
Prove it.
I didn't say it.
Let me just throw something at you here, Xeno. So like take like so evolution. It's the coolest shit in the world, right? So I can't just say, look at the trees, they're evidence of evolution. They fucking are, but that's not good enough, right? What I have to do is put together. Right, I know. I am being reductive with your argument on purpose, but it's to get to a point. It's not to traw man you. It's just to be quick, because we've been on this call for a long time. We got other people waiting. So if I were to just to say, look at these frogs, they're evidence of evolution. That is true, because the frogs did evolve, and I can show that, but like just saying, look at them, and they're evidence for something you don't understand yet, that's not a compelling argument for evolution. So instead,
sure. And
what I do is I take all these different independent lines of evidence and I build an inductive model. So I don't just say, here's all the options, let's rule them out. I take the data that's in front of me and I paint a picture with that data and come up with a model inductively. That's what you're arguing for right now, is you're saying, here's all this stuff that you don't realize is evidence and you don't realize what it's evidence for, but the thing is there. The difference between what you're saying and an actual meaningful claim, like evolution, for example, is that now I take that model and I do two things. Number one, I weigh it against reality. I compare it to the reality around me, and I say, if this model is accurate, then I should be able to see these things in reality. And the second thing that I do that now in the future, and I make novel testable predictions. If this is true, then I should find this thing here, and I should be able to do these things, and that happens. That's the big difference. And also, of course, the third thing is that it's fucking falsifiable. We already ruled out falsifiability because we just have to take this on faith. So, like, what I'm asking you here now is, can you do that? Can you give us a novel testable prediction? Can you hold your model up to reality and show that it actually works and it actually functions in some way? Or is it entirely just a bong rip that we all have to take seriously and believe is the nature of the universe?
Well, I would say when you get a girlfriend, you're taking that bong rip, you're trusting that she's not going to cheat on you. So you don't have any way to prove that she's not going to cheat on you. But we have to take it in faith.
What? That's a bad relationship, my guy. That's not, no.
Well, no.
I don't just,
how do you
I don't just blindly trust that.
That's a bad relationship.
I don't just blindly trust that. I wouldn't get into a relationship. I would. Right, but like trust. Oh my god, dude, trust. Trust in a relationship is not the same thing as testing a model against reality.
Well, what I'm saying is that you can't know indefinitely that it's true. That doesn't make it false, right?
I didn't ask you to.
Ignorance basically means. Well, I
didn't ask you to, and I wouldn't say that of science either. I'm asking you for a novel, testable prediction.
So, what's the novel, testable prediction that you can do to show that your girlfriend's not cheating on you?
That's different. That you're comparing things about the future versus an actual testable model. So, like, here's what I can do, right? I can say, like, if I have, like, just to use your analogy, which does not work, by the way, but just to play the game for funsies, I can say I have this model of my wife's love for me based on the evidence that I have accrued over the course of our relationship. And now I can do a test, which is I can leave home and go on a work trip. I can send her out to go drinking with friends. I can invite a guy over and not be home at the time. And if my model is correct, she will not cheat. And that indeed, all of those situations have occurred, and she has not cheated. So therefore, my model seems accurate. The thing about science, you never say anything is absolutely certain for sure. I'm asking you just for the basic thing that we would use to establish a theory here and elevate it above the idea of a bong rip.
You can't. Yeah. The beauty of
hold on. By the way, hold on. You're also trying to say, with this thing of like, well, you can't know. You don't know what someone else is doing. And by the way, the default position should be when you're in an exclusive relationship with someone where you've both agreed to be exclusively monogamous with each other. The default belief should be that that person is not cheating unless evidence is presented to suggest otherwise. And evidence is the thing. That's the thing we're asking for. So the default position is just, hey, this is what the agreement was. That's what it's going to be. The only reason you should start thinking maybe my partner's cheating on me is if you start seeing evidence that supports that thought, that right. Like that position. It's not healthy to just believe in it just because you've got like a feeling, like a thought, like, I think she's cheating. She's been acting strangely. That's not healthy.
That says more about you than her.
Yeah. And that's basically our entire thing on this show is just like, you shouldn't just go like, I just feel like there's someone out there who built the software for the simulation that I'm living in, and I feel like it's a simulation. What's the evidence for it? Your default should be it's not that unless there's some kind of reason for me to think it might be that. And that's all we're saying on the show is like okay. There's no reason why your default should be something outlandish.
You're saying there's no reason. There are plenty of reasons, but I don't have time to dive into that right now. So it was fun, guys.
You do. We've asked you several
30
times.
Minutes. You've had 30 minutes, and we keep asking for evidence, and you've had 30 minutes to provide it.
I appreciate it. No, I appreciate it. I'm just saying, I think, like, I would love to talk to you guys for hours, trust me, but I know that if I start talking again, this is going to just keep going. But I really enjoyed it. Like, I have so much more to say, of course. So
I bet you do.
All right, man. Yeah, take care. We're going to jump on the next call, but definitely call back again sometime and provide us some evidence.
My advice, Xeno, in the future would be like, if you say I'm coming in with evidence, like, have it ready. Like, here we go. This thing,
yes,
a date and a place. This thing happened, and they discovered this, like a hand reached through a gap in time space and moved a thing, and it was caught on camera. And then they I don't know. Have something. Have a case ready. Don't just come in here and be like, it's like, people make video games. What if someone made this? And it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. What if? Do you have evidence of that being the case? It's like, could be. Sure. Could be. There's no reason to think it is.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing that I have. It was the same thing with the last call. It's just like, just because a thing might possibly, reasonably, maybe be in a weird possible way, and if you squint your eyes and tilt your head and hold your breath and take an extra dab and like all the, maybe it's this, like, okay, great. That's a fun thing to think of. The same thing with Xeno. I would say the same thing with Xeno, as I said to the last caller, Brian, whoever they were. I'm not going to say these aren't fun things to think about. They totally are. But are they real? And how do you know? Like, that's my question. What? I feel like I've talked a lot for the last two calls.
Don't just think your girlfriend's cheating on you if you have no reason to think that. That's a bad way to be. And
it makes you look like you're cheating. I'll be honest with you.
You look really insecure and you look really uncomfortable with just like letting things be and letting and it's the same thing with God. It's like you're uncomfortable with not knowing, so you just inject this massive thing that's unnecessary. You just inject this claim into existence that's like, no, it's this. And I think it's like people feel uncomfortable in their relationship. They don't know why, and then they're just like, I'm just gonna invent that she's cheating on me. Don't do that unless you have a reason to do that, and like a actual evidence to do that, not just a feeling, not a vibe, not yeah,
man. It's frustrating. It's frustrating. We've got two more theist calls and then two atheist calls on the line right now, and I don't think lines are closed at this moment. So those will be our last four calls of the evening. I feel like I've talked a lot for the last two calls. So if I'm being obnoxious, feel free to interrupt me at any time, my friend. I don't want to overtalk you or anything like that, but I feel
I was going to text you afterward and be like, don't ever fucking do that to me ever again. Okay? Don't ever just fucking railroad me like that in the middle of the show. You just, like, I wanted to keep it cool in front of our people in the chat, but don't fucking embarrass me.
Keep it together for the kids.
Yeah.
Don't be fucking embarrassed.
Don't you fucking embarrass me in front of the audience like that ever again.
The only thing funnier than you saying it is how funny that text would actually be.
Hey, man, I want you to know we're cool, but like, don't ever fucking do that to me ever again.
Oh shit. Do you want to do line number 2 or line number 1 there?
I would rather do 2. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. And they've also been waiting for longer anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna talk to Alex, pronouns he, him, who is a theist who wants to know why we don't think there is a God. Alex, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today?
Oh man, it's a lot. So I guess over the past month, I've watched a lot of your videos, Forrest, and like you bring up like I guess like a lot of good points, especially like with like the arc. But I guess like I've had a couple like personal experiences, and I guess like most like I don't know what I would do if I'm an atheist. Like right now, I guess I don't really know if I'm like a Christian anymore. I'm definitely like questioning it and whatnot. So
I want to go to the topic of your call here really quick, because you were asking us, why do we think there isn't a God? It's interesting to me, you said you've been watching a lot of the shows. Have you not heard us answer that question in the episodes that you've watched?
I guess I've watched like a lot of like the clips and stuff. I guess it's more just like I don't like if like I do come to the conclusion that like there isn't a God, like I don't know what to do.
Oh,
really?
It's like
you're afraid you feel like life has no meaning if there's not a God. Is that what you're afraid of?
Like I kind of, and then also like all of my family is fairly religious.
Yeah.
And like I'm very reliant on my parents.
Have you talked to have you heard of a place called Recovering from Religion?
No.
So RFR, let's see here, I think it is just rfr.org. Recovering from religion. Yeah, recoveringfromreligion.org. And I'll put the link in the chat right now. So they're an organization for people who are leaving faith and deconstructing from the faith. We just raised like $114 something thousand for them a couple of months ago on this channel. We do fundraisers for them all the time. And this is what they're for, is that they are an organization that hires counselors and psychiatrists, and they also have volunteers and whatnot, and they take calls round the clock, and they help people who are in the process of deconstruction and having these big questions of what the fuck does life mean now, and what do I do with my family now? Because they are people who have been through that, and they also, like I said, they have licensed professional therapists, counselors, psychologists, psychiatrists, people who are able to really handle those things in a meaningful way. I'm happy to talk to you about this, and I'm sure Austin is too. But I encourage you after this call to make another phone call and call them whenever you have a chance to, like, just gotta talk this through, because like deconstruction is scary, and there's no reason to go through it by yourself.
Yeah, and I would also just add to that, Alex, that I relate to this personally. It is very hard. I was raised in a very high demand religion where everyone in my community, it was like a 90% of people in my neighborhood and at the schools that I went to all went to the same church that I went to. And all of my friends growing up all went to the same church. And I was like the first person in my friend group and in my family and in my extended family to step away from it when I was 18 years old. And it was very scary. It's a really scary thing to do. And I thought I was risking losing lifelong friendships and lifelong community support. And for like the first 5 years, it really felt like I didn't know if my family and I were going to make it through it, if my friends that I grew up with were going to stick with me. So I relate to what you're going through here. In my experience, the reason of like, why don't I think there's a God? It comes from like believing in something so hardcore that I really, really genuinely thought it was the truth of the universe. And when that fell apart, realizing that the structure of all of the other stories was so similar to the one that fell apart for me, and then just investigating what that's about and realizing that like this is a pattern that repeats in human history and human culture, because humans just have a desire to feel taken care of, and we want to know things and we want to understand things on a grander scale. We're afraid of mortality. We're afraid of the unknowns of death and what that means, and we're afraid of finality and not knowing what happens when we cross the threshold of, our heart no longer beating and our brain no longer firing off electrical signals. And so we create mythology around it, because it's really scary to just sort of walk around not having all of those puzzle pieces firmly put in place. But in my experience, like once you start pulling on those threads, it's really hard to just trick yourself into still believing in it, because it feels a little bit more comfortable. Once you start realizing that like, oh, this is just human beings trying to comfort themselves and self-soothe in a very confounding existence, it's hard to put those pieces back. Does that sort of sound like the experience you've been having lately?
Yeah, and I mean, some of it is like, I don't remember if I said it already, but like I live with my parents. And I'm pretty dependent on them. I have a really complex medical condition without going like too much into it. I have to get like Medicaid and stuff. And I feel like a God. I don't think I would even really define myself as. I was, I guess, a Lutheran. I don't think I would define myself with any sect anymore. But, I feel like some kind of higher entity has really comforted me through, a lot of surgeries and stuff. And so, I think that brings up questions for me, at least, of like, what was that, random comforting feeling, after I'm like praying after surgery and like, I'm intubated and I'm freaking out, and, after all this, like, I feel bad, like, not coming out to my family and, like, lying through omission and like going to church and
you're afraid you're going to lose that support.
And also you feel bad for keeping it to yourself. And I get that. It's important to remember, I think, so a couple of things. Number one, your safety is the most important thing. So if you're worried about losing healthcare, housing, whatever like that, that's something to take into consideration. It's also important to remember that like you are in charge of your life. This is the one life that you have, right? You don't get to do any part of this twice. And so it's not like I'll just deal with this until I'm like, 30, and then I'll when I do my 20s again next time, it'll be better. You don't get to do any of that shit. And so you need to make serious calculations about how much of this relationship with your family are you willing to put at risk or maybe even sacrifice to be true to yourself? How much of yourself are you willing to bottle up and hide in order to maintain this relationship? How much are these conversations worth? How much is being honest with yourself worth? And what's the right time to make these steps? These are all adult decisions, and they're not easy decisions. They are very difficult, trying, and serious considerations that you need to be making. But you're the only person who can make them. And it's the same thing as whenever I talk about, when people ask me like, what am I going to do with my life? Who am I going to be when I grow up? Things like this. It's the same thing that I tell them, is that if you don't choose who you are, someone else is going to choose for you. And I promise you will not like it. You will not like what they choose. It's the same thing here. When you're talking about coming out to your family, when you're talking about going through the process, doing the hard work of deconstruction, when you're talking about living in truth, it's not easy. And it's not comfortable, and it's not always safe. But if you don't do it for yourself, someone else will decide how you live. And I promise you will not like it. So for you, Alex, I would just say, your original question was, why don't we think there is a God? It's for three reasons. One, because there's no good reason to believe in a God. Number two, because there's lots of good reasons not to believe in many of the gods on offer, especially like the Christian God. There's just strong evidence against it. And number three, because all the gods on offer fucking suck. They're all assholes, and none of them are worthy of worship. You get through those things, and now you come up and play, all right, I have no reason to believe in any of this shit anymore. If you're in the Christian tradition to start with, you start with the Bible is all true, and then you're like, all right, well, a lot of it isn't true, but it needs to be interpreted, and then you come to these conclusions. And then it's, okay, well, none of the Bible makes any sense, but Jesus was really important. And then it's actually, Jesus doesn't fucking matter anyway, so it's like kind of just there's this vague idea of God that's kind of important, and then it's pantheism for a while, and everything's God, and then it's like an animism thing, and then it's like, well, at least there's souls, and then there's no souls, and then you kind of go through a bunch of weird angry phases, then surprise, you're an atheist. Welcome to the dark side. We have juvenile humor and dick jokes and existential dread. So welcome to the club. Now you get to decide what the fuck you're going to do with the rest of your life. And that is your choice to make. And you, like I said, have to now put in that work I'm not trying to talk down to you here. That is just part of being a grown-up. Is, I really fucking don't want to figure out what my financial situation is. I really just want to deal with my dreams, but I gotta do taxes. And that's part of the thing that I'm in here. That's part of life. And you're in the same situation. You just want to be you, man. But you got a family, and you got a community, and you have repercussions for your thoughts and your beliefs and your actions, and you matter in this world. You are worth the time that it takes to have this difficult conversation and to do this difficult work. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm saying it's worth it. So I think you need to get started, man.
I would echo that, Alex, as a person who has been right where you've been and it was one of the hardest things I ever did when I did it. And I look at it now, I've been out for 20 years, and it's something that I'll never go back on it. It's something I couldn't go back on if I wanted to, but, there's a lot of integrity to being able to just look at life on life's terms and go, hey, I woke up here one day because some people had sex, and I don't really fully understand a lot of it, but there's a lot of fun in trying to understand what's actually happening instead of just finding a story that's the most satisfying and lets me off the hook.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and also I don't know how to explain like the religious, like personal religious experiences that I've had myself. I kind of briefly mentioned it. Like I guess during surgery, I was like kind of like aware that I existed in a way. It was very weird point of time that I was like under anesthesia, but I wasn't like able to like open my eyes or anything. And I just had like this comforting feeling after I don't know how long.
Yeah. That sounds like a lot of people's near-death experiences. Shit was weird, and then I had this comforting feeling, and then things got better. That was going to be my first question. Before you turned out to be cool, when you said I've had these experiences, my feisty question to you is going to be, are your experiences any different than literally every other religious person's experiences that have ever called this show? And I guarantee the answer is going to be no. Our minds and our brains tend to do cool shit for us when we're in distress. And I've heard of
Propofol's a hell of a drug too.
It's intense. And I've heard plenty of people talking about their near-death experience and when they died for a few minutes and they were brought back, and describing the process of dying is just there was no worry anymore. There was no stress. And I knew everything was going to be okay. And you know what? That sounds like a pretty dope thing for our minds to do, but that's a whole other conversation for a whole other time.
I struggled with that as well, Alex, when I was first leaving, because I had these experiences that I considered to be confirmations of, the truthfulness of the church that I was raised in, where I prayed to know and to have it confirmed to me. And then I had this really strong burning in my chest and this warmth and this overwhelming, emotional experience that I felt to be like a confirmation that God was, but then it's like, it's so weird, the older you get and the more people that you talk to from different religious disciplines, you're like, oh wait, that's not a very unique experience. That's just something that the human body can do. And if we want it badly enough, I mean, you can have that experience watching a good movie. You can have that experience at a concert, watching a band that you really like just perform the hell out of a set. You can have that experience doing all kinds of things, and it's not unique to being at church and really wanting to be connected to something bigger than yourself. It's just the human body is capable of giving you this influx of serotonin and dopamine that feels really amazing and feels like it's confirming something. And but that doesn't it doesn't necessarily work as substantive proof that there's something supernatural happening or that you're having some kind of confirmation from the divine creator of the universe. Because it's an experience that's just very human.
Yeah. But that's a whole thing that you get to explore now, man. When my hair just got gray because I just was about to say, when I was your age, I was very, very, very into spiritual stuff and trying desperately to find that meaning as somebody who grew up in a very multicultural way, surrounded by different religions, and I called myself a mystic at the time. I wanted so badly to explore every kind of religion, every kind of faith, and all this esoteric knowledge from all around the world, these different philosophies, and build some things. And the more I did it, the more atheist I became. So dig in. Don't just shove these things off, and don't just write these things off, and don't just say, well, dig into it and ask questions and find good answers, find better answers than what we can give you, and call back in and challenge us and be challenged in return if you'd like. But do absolutely call recovering from religion. That's a super cool thing to do. And have an awesome rest of your day and an awesome rest of your life, and never stop learning and never stop growing, and you will be okay, Alex.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thanks for calling in, Alex. Take care, okay?
Yeah.
We're here for you if you need us, man.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
He's going to be all right.
Yeah, he'll be all right. It's a scary time when you're first starting out, and it's a, it is one of the major problems with organized religion is they all claim to have this focus on the family and on, being a kind of bonding agent for families, but all too often it becomes the catalyst for family conflict that seems really unnecessary, where it creates a barrier for understanding between family members and for strong communication. And it's unfortunate. And then taken to the extremes, it can be something that separates families. It can be the catalyst for people dying by suicide because they were rejected by their families. And it's really upsetting how often that stuff happens and kind of goes unchecked.
Yeah. I have four things. Number one, we had an atheist caller who was waiting for a while who wanted to talk about, is being trans part of biology? Yes, it is. Wish you would have stuck around, but they dropped. So just there's your answer. Yes, absolutely. And if you want to talk about it, I'm on tomorrow on Skeptalk, which, by the way, I should probably read the rest of the schedule, shouldn't I? I'll pull that up here in a second. The second thing is that there's somebody in the chat who had to be muted by our mods like 3 times. First time saying, like, is eternity in hell worth it? You have to ask if that's and atheists are asking you to sacrifice. That's like Jesus. It's another religion. And then also the Holy Spirit makes you dance and only God can do that. The problem with dumb shit like this is we can never tell if this person is trolling. Because that's actually how fucking stupid this shit sounds. And so we'll never know if this person's just trolling and being stupid, or if they actually seriously believe that way and they're just being honest. And it's hard to say. The back to the first thing is that tomorrow, I'm on Skeptalk with Dr. Blitz, so tune in for that if you want to hear science calls. Then we've got Chewed Gum with Alyssa and Taylor. Then we've got The Hang Up with Matt Dillahunty and Mandisa Thomas. Then we've got TACIS with Josie and Jack. And then we've got Devangelicals with Sarah and Dalton. And then all the way back around to next Sunday when we've got Matt and allegedly Ian on the Sunday show, and me and fucking somebody on After Dark. Maybe it'll be Austin again if they'll get him on here. I don't know. But that's the schedule for the next week, so stay tuned for all of those things. In response to what you were saying, something I was wanting to talk about at the very beginning of the show, but I'd already rambled for so long. You're talking about what religion does to people and how these families act. I heard a thing today that has been resonating with me all day. It was somebody posted this on TikTok, and I reposted. I don't remember their handle off the top of my head, but it really stuck out to me. Have you noticed that anytime somebody goes through a big religious revival, you have some creator that's got millions of followers for doing silly food reviews or whatever it is, because that's the thing that's going on TikTok at this moment, is this person. And then suddenly they become super Christian and they're going to start talking about God all the time, and they need to tell everybody about Jesus now. And they have this religious psychosis, this religious revival, whatever we want to call it. They find the Lord and then it never results in that person donating a shit ton of money to charity, or going out and telling everybody how loved they are, or giving away all their superfluous bullshit, or cutting out a bunch of vices from their life and
no, if anything, they usually use it to grift and to make money, and also it often comes on the back of that person getting in trouble for doing something shitty, and then they're like, oh, guess what, I found the Bible. Right. And then they start selling out stadiums to people who like that they're Christians now. And yeah,
I'm just saying it always ends in homophobia or transphobia or judgment or bigotry. Always, there's never a time, and I would love to see one. I can't think of a single time that some big influencer has been like, I do all these world travel content. I make cool little cars. I do it, and I've got millions of followers. And then, hey, I found Jesus, and I need to tell everybody we need to all get together and donate to Doctors Without Borders because that's what Jesus would have done. He gave away free healthcare. We're going to do it too. It's always, guys, gay people are going to burn forever. And if you're trans, you need God. And if you aren't like me, there's a problem. And you too shall burn if you don't repent. And it always turns into bigotry. It's never anything but that. And I feel like it's the same thing when we meet callers like Alex or whoever else. It's never like, I'm questioning this, I'm doubting this, I think I'm a part, but at least I have my family to lean on. I've never gotten that call. I'm sure those people are out there, and people would say, hey, I wanted to talk to you guys because you are the atheist content creators that I watch, but I know I'm safe at home at least. It is always, I'm just terrified if I believe this, if I can't come up with a reason to say that you're wrong, what am I going to do? I'm going to get kicked out of my house. I'm going to lose my health coverage. I'm going to lose my friends. I'm going to lose my community. Why is that a threat? Why is that so scary? Why? That's what religion does to people, and it's scary.
Have you ever heard of a person who's like, my atheist parents are going to kick me out of the house because I think I might like Jesus?
When does it happen?
Yeah.
Show me.
Yeah.
Show me the example. I'll call that person out first.
Yeah.
And then the one last thing that I have is this, which I am so thrilled that we got. I didn't think I was going to be able to show this on stream, but we can. So Jimmy sent me this earlier today, and now Lux just put it in the producer chat as well. I'm covering part of this. This is an email that we got today at the Lions contact box. Matt Dillahunt, he's a gay homosexual who pretends it's okay for others to be gay homosexuals, but refuses to admit that he's a gay homosexual because he knows he should be ashamed of being a gay homosexual. To which Jimmy replied, do your friends know that you're gay? And this person, of course, ignored that and just went after me and said, Forrest Valkai is a science-denying biologist who's terrified of the innocuous, benign, harmless, true, provable statement that life begins at conception, even though stating it has nothing to undermine every pregnable woman's right to bodily autonomy. First of all, pregnable woman is the grossest fucking thing I've ever heard. But even funnier than that is the suggested reply, who gives a shit about Forrest Valkai? Which is so true. So fair. Thank you so much. That is the first time that Google AI has done anything good. Was this right here?
The repetition of gay homosexual, the redundancy of that phrase is killing me. He's so a gay beautiful homosexual. Okay. All right.
It's like, that's funny, but the Google AI is so much funnier. Like, it has learned how perfect. Jimmy responds to emails.
It's so perfect. Yeah. I think Jimmy texted me that, and my response was, 1, pregnable woman is the grossest shit I've read all day. 2, that suggested reply is perfect. 3, this dude should call in.
Where are all the pregnable women at? Yo,
pregnable women in chat.
This one goes out to all my pregnable women.
All my pregnable women. Oh man,
my rhymes are so potent that in this small segment, all the ladies in the first 2 rows got pregnant.
That's right. That's right. Somebody in the chat said, "Happy Gay Homosexual Month." Yay, it's my favorite. It's Gay Homosexual and Not Veterans Month.
Yeah, fuck those veterans.
Fuck the veterans. That's why this month exists.
I posted a week before Pride Month. I posted a thing saying, like, there's only 1 week left in Military Appreciation Month, which means we're 1 week away from a bunch of MAGA fucking cultists talking about, why do we have a month for the military or veterans? That one's in November, by the way.
Every year.
And
every year.
And sure as sure as the tide goes in and the tide comes out and all these things, 1 million fucking MAGA accounts on June fucking 1st. This Pride Month is canceled. We need a month for the veterans. It happens just as right as the mail. just as regular as your cycle.
Guys,
it happens all the time.
Your president started an unnecessary war by bombing a school and killing a bunch of little girls. Focus, for fuck's sake.
Just rein it in for 1 second. Just
focus.
Try.
If you care about the fucking troops, you should care that we're starting wars we don't need to be starting and then losing them.
And then surrendering in the dumbest way possible.
Surrendering and giving them so much, way more than they had under the previous deal, while still funding active genocide. That's
what I can't get. Is that you've got the Iran nuclear deal from Obama, right? They are not allowed to have weapons. They are only allowed to have this tiny amount of enriched uranium purely for research purposes. They have this tiny amount. They're not allowed to build bombs. They're not allowed. And they're like, all right, guys, fair enough. Let's do it. We're in. We agree. All right. Everybody's on the same page. Everybody's getting along. It's great. That's the starting point, right? That's the beginning. Then we destroy that. They start enriching uranium. So then we bomb the fuck out of them. And then we say we've obliterated their nuclear sites. They will never recover. 2 months later, we gotta bomb them again because they got nukes again. Apparently, it's come back. Who knew? It happened. Somehow, it's now this big threat again. So we were wrong then, or we wrong then? Who cares? We destroy a bunch of civilian infrastructure. We kill a bunch of children. We kill a bunch of athletes. We do all this shit, and we only find out because satellite imagery shows, no, actually, we also hit this fucking, sporting complex and killed a bunch of kids there too, and the government tried to cover that up. And then the strait is closed, and then we announce over and over that we're at war. We announce over and over that we're not at war, that this isn't a war. We announce over and over that we won the war, that it's not a war, that we've mission accomplished 30 different times. We're having peace talks for the war we've already won 30 different times. We're not at war, but we're winning, and we can declare victory over and over. There was one interview where Trump declared victory and denied the war was happening 10 times in the same fucking interview. And now, at the end of this, gas prices are still up. They still have complete control of this strait, and they're still closing it and all this shit. And we've paid them billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they still don't have a nuclear deal, and they still have uranium.
Can you just be glad?
What'd you win?
Can you just be glad that the pool was blue for a couple days before the algae started?
It was blue for a minute.
It was blue for Can you just be glad that the pool was blue? Okay, for a couple days before the algae grew.
Someone just pointed out in the chat as well. We also I believe it was in Switzerland, Iran just walked out of the peace negotiation because fucking Vance's dumb baby ass is there, to have these talks, and everyone walks out on him and ignores him because while he's there to do the peace talks, Trump is making threats back home and running his fucking mouth. And so we're now even farther away from peace, even though we just surrendered. We just surrendered, and we're still far from peace because the fucking dipshit doesn't know how to surrender right.
Oh God.
It's so fucking stupid.
It's just nonsense. It's just it is. I'm glad that I feel like I'm getting, for a year and a half there after November 2024, I was just on peak, just fury mode. I was just the maddest I've ever been.
Yeah.
And now I'm sort of at the phase where I'm just sort of whatever, man. Just okay.
What are we even doing?
Whatever, dude.
I can't do it, dude. It's so stupid. We've got 2 calls left. One of them is a theist and one of them is an atheist who's been waiting for a very long time. So, Jason, stick around, keep on hanging on. We'll take your call last because we always take atheists last. We got one more call left, and it's from Robin, any and all pronouns, calling in as a theist. Wants to talk about anthropocentrism. Robin, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Forrest and Austin?
So very good.
Never had a bad day.
May I start with a bit of light humor?
Yeah.
I would suggest that a sadistic God makes more sense than the foreign policy of the current administration.
A sadistic God would probably be smart enough to maintain a straight line of thought, unlike the foreign administrations. Yes, yeah. What's the point? What's the joke? Where are you taking it?
Oh, Trump's a fucking idiot and a madman. But
right, agreed.
To get to why I've called in, relating, sorry, a little bit of a hard turn. I would argue, and I'm hoping Forrest, Austin, I don't know your background, but I'm hoping Forrest can prove me wrong in the fact that
his background is some really good art and a cool cat poster.
Oh, that's sick.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's kind of embarrassing. These are pictures of me in movies that I was in, but they're they're like pop art, and I didn't do that. My girlfriend got those for me as a gift, and I put them up, and now I'm like, it does look really narcissistic that I just have these like paintings of myself. But
do you want to know what's even fucking more narcissistic?
What?
Like, while we're on the topic, give me 2 seconds. I'm gonna be right back. I literally have to step in the next room right here.
I feel like if it was fan art, that wouldn't be narcissistic. You know, you got somebody sent you some love and you put it up there. I don't see why it's narcissistic.
It's because someone that I love did it as a nice gesture to me.
So this is my office and my streaming studio. My actual YouTube recording studio is right next door, and I also have, this is fan art that people have made for me. It's fucking framed.
I mean, those are dope.
And then I got this one here as well. And I keep these in my YouTube recording studio, across from my desk, like on the other side of the room, so I can see them while I'm filming, because then when I'm like really tired and burned out and overwhelmed, I don't want to fucking do it. I look at me like, but these people, you know, they and that's inspiration. That's narcissistic. This is cringy as fuck. But like, that's
sorry, but yeah, we're Robin, what's up with anthropocentrism?
You're all right. I like the levity. It's good to have.
Yeah.
The reason I'm calling in today is that I'm hoping I can get some kind of opinion on language as a uniquely human characteristic. I remember in my undergraduate studies, for a time I was studying linguistics, and I was taught that language is something that is unique to humans among other animals and also among non-animals, specifically as it relates to computers and computer processing. So it's a uniquely human trait, and how that would fit into the kind of non-theistic model in terms of explanations.
I'm not sure. Sorry, I'm not sure I'm not sure what you're asking.
Yeah, sorry. Kind of how does language, as it's currently understood as uniquely human, what is kind of the explanatory mechanism outside of a God or theistic reasoning, creating kind of an anthropocentric model of existence?
Oh, like why is there like are you asking like why is there sort of like an intelligence hierarchy in animals? Like why does it seem like we have like more advanced communication skills and just like a more advanced ability to create tools and things like that than other animals? Is that what you're asking?
Specifically language. Because I remember when I was studying this as a topic, specifically language in its complexity and in its, trying to remember the word, the spontaneity with which the units of language are used in humans is unique to humans among both animals and non-animals. Non-animals mostly being computers.
Yeah, I guess I'm wondering how this gets us to God. I first of all, language isn't unique to just humans. Like other animals have languages. But you know, I when we talk about like the gradient of I guess intelligence in the animal kingdom, like it's hard not to argue that the apes that are building spaceships and going to the moon aren't like the technologically supreme uh animal on the planet, but also then you can argue about like the massive environmental effects and the detrimental effects of our intelligence and the existential threats those pose to not just us but other animals, and there's a whole conversation that can be had there. I'm still just wondering how we're getting to how this points to a god.
Right. So I would push back on the point that other animals have language. Other animals certainly have means of communication and very developed means of communication, but those are, at least as I've been taught in studying linguistics, not equivalent to what we would call language.
You can call them proto-language if you really want. But the whole thing is that when we talk about this stuff, it's the same thing as when we talk about morality or whatever else. Like the thing we run into over and over is that anything that you can use to distinguish humans from other animals, it's a difference in degree, not a difference of kind. And so it's the same thing, like if we talk about dolphins having unique names for each other, which is true. We talk about Diana monkeys and Campbell monkeys, which not only have predator alarm calls, but have different alarm calls for different predators and prefixes and suffixes based on what direction the predator's coming from or where they got the information. If they saw the predator themselves or they heard it from somebody else, that's syntax, that's context, that's grammar, that's structure. So like you can, again, you can call it a proto-language if you really want, but it is a difference in degree, not a difference in kind. And it's kind of like when we talk about technology as a defining characteristic of humanity. Just because we do this thing more doesn't mean that other animals aren't doing it or aren't capable of doing it.
Okay, so you said dolphins having other names. What were the other points? I want to look into these papers later.
Yeah. So dolphins have unique.
Hopefully, find them.
Yeah. Dolphins have unique names for each other. That's a thing. There's also Diana monkeys, Campbell monkeys, and I think some other ones, but I don't remember off the top of my head. They have different alarm calls for different predators, different alarm calls if the predator is coming from above or below. They have prefixes and suffixes on those calls to say, I saw it, or Steve told me and I'm telling you. There are cases of like with vervet monkeys, where if you play like a baby crying from like a speaker, the mother will look to the speaker. All the other ones around will look at the mother because they're able to identify different individuals in their troop and know who's related to who. So like, there's a lot of things here where we talk about like how language really works. And the complex parts of language that make it a language. And yes, I can say that human languages have more of these things, and there's some individual pieces of language that other animals don't have. But I think Austin's absolutely right in saying that other animals have what we could call a language. And if you really wanted to split hairs and say it's a proto-language, that's fine. But again, it's not a difference in what they're capable of. It's a difference of how much they do a thing.
I need to look at those papers, or hopefully find them. But having the topic that shouldn't be too hard. That's why I like calling into this. This is a great resource. As someone who's currently studying accounting, I don't have much free time to put my research into the topics that are more weighty on me. But yeah, I appreciate that. That kind of pushes back against a strong point this is laying on me and my considerations. So thank you both. I appreciate that. And I'm going to do a bit more research, and hopefully next time I call in, I'll have some more development on that.
Sounds great, man.
Thanks, Robin.
Biggity bye.
Absolutely. You both have.
Oh, they were being nice at the end, and I hung up too fast.
Sorry, Robin.
This new system is
Forrest is an asshole.
Fuck you, Robin.
Forrest, he has no respect for nice people when they call in. He's always just cutting people off mid compliment.
I do that a lot. This new system is faster. I blame Jimmy for that.
Anyway, look, once you start doing it, it's nice, right? You got to admit, you were when we got on this call, Forrest was like, I don't want the new controls. It's nice. It's all in one spot.
It's not bad. I don't like the fact that there isn't a timer. I keep having to switch back and forth between the new system and the old system to see how long we've been on a call and to see how long someone's been waiting. Because here we are, our last call tonight has been waiting for an hour and 28 minutes. I don't know that in the new system because Jimmy Snow is a big old butt and doesn't want us to know that.
Yeah, fair.
Anyway,
that's fair. Jimmy is a big old butt.
He is a big old butt. We got one last call tonight, and that is Jason. Who is our atheist caller, who says that MAGA is having an impact in New Zealand. I'm guessing that is. Jason, you're on the line with Forrest and Austin. How you doing?
Good, thanks. Hello, Austin. And
hello.
The other guy I didn't get. The other guy I didn't get your name. Is it Tommy or Trey?
Forrest. Forrest, although Tommy is a funny nickname for me, so you can go with that if you want. You know what? I'm actually an asshole. I'm an asshole, and I just realized the joke you were making.
I thought you Tommy actually your guy? Isn't
Tommy is my guy, and Trey is the name of the character about me in the movie that just came out about me. So, like, I'm just Jason. The problem is I'm dumb as fuck, and that was very funny what you just said, and I'm fucking stupid. I'm sorry.
Nice work, Jason. Nice work.
That's good. That's okay. That's okay. I did enjoy your biopic, and I thought the guy they chose to portray you, it was just an uncanny. Likeness, wasn't it?
Yes. I also am Timu Keith Urban. Really quick, Trey. We got one thing I didn't get on the screen here. We got 1,500 people watching. Do you want them to call you he, she, they, or something else?
Anything you like. Any and all pronouns are fine for me.
Hell yeah, we got any and all. I got that typed in there. Sweet.
Sounds good.
All right, man. What do you want to talk about today?
Awesome, thanks. Well, much as I'd like to kick it with the renegade science teacher, I was actually more calling to talk to Austin because, I've just been in this time of the ascendance of the mega fascist domination. It's been really great for me listening to some of your content, Austin, because sometimes I feel like Mugatu when he's like, am I taking crazy pills? And you kind of just narrate that for me, which is awesome. Like sometimes I feel like people aren't as alarmed as they should be about what's happening, especially in your country. Of course. Are you guys still there?
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
Yes. I'm just listening to you pay me compliments and just enjoying it.
Oh, that's good. That's good. But lately as well, it's kind of metastasized. So we've got a bill that's just the government is trying to pass here in New Zealand. And 3 guesses, Forrest, about which minority they're going after.
I bet it's trans people.
Yep, bingo.
Yep.
Yeah, it's one of these stupid, definition of a man and woman bills, which is drafted by people who couldn't logic their way out of a paper bag.
People who don't have the most elementary basic knowledge of gender and sex and sexuality. Don't have the most basic
exactly.
concept of it.
Yeah. Luckily, our electoral system is a lot more progressive than yours. So it looks like in the next election, we've got a good chance of getting a Green Party in a significant position of power. And also the our major sort of left of centre party, which is the Labour Party, is doing pretty well, and pretty much most people hate the Conservative Party, which is called National over here. So hopefully we'll get a change of government, but I think this horrible coalition have got the numbers to get this horrible bill through. So I'm just hoping that there's a few people who have the sense, or who know some trans people, or who can actually reflect on what horrible repercussions it's going to have for everyone. Because one of the things that they've also tried to sneak into this bill is a partial abortion ban. So that would it would.
They love doing that. People, they love sneaking. They just love like putting a bunch of shit into one bill. And yeah. And of course, I blame you guys. We're the roadmap for sure. It's all this culture war bullshit that gets everyone fighting over issues which aren't issues, you know. And even my best friend's a trans woman, and but she's an older trans woman, and I hear her even sometimes coming out with some of the talking points. So it's really troubling. So what do you guys do to sort of get through? I heard your little rant just before, Forrest, and I thought, yep. That's kind of how I'm feeling as well. Like, how is everything going so sideways? And it's just going, you know. It's like, I wish, like in
we
France,
see it a lot.
But in France, like, you know, they try and you know, if they've got free milk, they try and ban it, and the farmers just rush into town with their pitchforks and stuff. And I know you guys have been doing protests and stuff, but it's like, what is it going to take to get rid of this fascist scourge that's risen? I'm glad at least to see that people are actually calling it what it is, because, you know, of course, the first tactic of the fascists is to cry about being called fascists and cry about being called racist, just so that they can, you know, they can stay undercover, so that people don't see them for what they really are. But I think more and more people are cottoning on. But I just hope that there's still the will to resist it. And
honestly,
any further.
Honestly, like, you know, making content about it is sometimes something that I use as like a salve to you know, because I'm trying to write out a script that I think is communicating my frustration and and hoping that I'm saying something that is connecting with other people, and then seeing that communal response that, like, okay, there are still thousands of people who feel the same way, and who, you know, that definitely helps. But then there's also times where I do need to disconnect from it. There are times where I'll open up the phone and go, like, there's enough people talking about it. There's enough people covering it, and there's enough people saying what I was already going to say, and I don't need to just add to the noise. If I don't feel like I have anything novel to add, if I don't feel like I have any way in to the argument that hasn't already been said by 50 to 100 other channels that basically said more or less what I was going to say, I'll just sort of back off from it and go, all right, I think it's been covered. But it is, it's such a weird time to exist, where, like, I feel like so much of what I talk about makes me sound crazy, makes me sound unhinged. It makes me sound like I've gone off the deep end and I need to be pulled back from the ledge, because we do live in a time where it's like, if I told you, you know, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, like, Donald Trump is going to be convicted of 34 felony counts of fraud and then reelected as president after it's been publicly made known that he has strong ties to a man who was convicted of, human trafficking and is one of the most prolific pedophiles of the last 100 years. And him and his billionaire friends who all visited this island all participated in pedophilic human trafficking. And Donald Trump has been strongly connected with that person, and that it's been, known that there is like a trove, an archive of files that substantiate this. And even with all that knowledge, he's going to be reelected, and he's going to use the office of the presidency to enrich himself by billions of dollars, something that no person has ever done with the office of that presidency. And he's also going to tear down half of the White House and do a cage match on the White House lawn and all of this stuff. Like, if I told you that, you'd go like, you sound insane. You sound like you're like a babbling madman. And yet it is just what's going on. I feel that way with AI too. I feel like when I'm talking to people about like AI, I sound insane. I sound crazy, but I'm like, it is crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy to be talking about data centers that are twice the size of Manhattan being put in the middle of rural areas and sucking up all of the fresh water supply so that we can generate images of nonsense. Like it sounds insane, but it is what's going on. I think it may also be part of their plan, because I've got a bit of a unique sort of vantage point, because I've been in a relationship with an emotionally abusive narcissist for a decade, and putting up with all of their gaslighting and bullshit. It's like, oh no, that's what's happening to you guys on a societal level. You're being gaslit and you're being manipulated, and they've got the stance that we can do anything the fuck that we want because we got freedom, motherfucker. And then you guys turn around and ask for something really reasonable on the left side, and they're like, what the fuck, they're turning the frogs gay, blah blah blah. And one of the worries that I do have with the American culture as it is, and especially the culture of comedy, is that some of the left-wing comedy may act as a release valve for people's emotions. And so they'll get the idea that because other people feel the same way, it's okay that the issue's been dealt with, but actually you've all got to go, regardless of what danger there might really, or whatever real or imagined danger there might be. You've all got to get yourselves to vote out this scourge, and basically save the world from the Fourth Reich.
Man.
And hopefully we'll do the same for our minor problems down here.
Our protests suck here. We do a lot and we do try, and I don't want anyone to be discouraged, but we don't bring the heat like a lot of other countries do. And you can do that without being violent. And but we just kind of we do a lot of the sit-ins and a lot of the I'm going to sit here and let this person arrest me to show that they'll arrest a person for sitting here. And we do that a lot. And then what ends up happening as a result is that a lot of people were arrested.
Permanent events that they like scheduled with the city, and it's more or less just like a fair. It's like not like a it's not like a protest. It's like, we got a permit from the city to go to this park and walk from this park to that park, and it's like okay, it's like
I don't know that that's a bad thing, because we do have to keep up our reserves and our energy and our enthusiasm. And I think
I'm not saying it's all bad. I'm saying that what happens is we like take for example, like Elijah McClain, a few years ago was a kid walking home from the store. I think he had headphones in, and somebody called the police saying that this kid was wearing his hoodie and moving erratically. And what it was is that it was cold outside. He had his hood up and he was dancing because he had his headphones in. And the cops tackled him and beat the shit out of him. And then the ambulance driver, because they called the ambulance to come get him, forcibly injected him with, I believe, ketamine, and it was like fucking 10 times more than he needed, and the kid died. And so here we have this institutional violence against a young black man, something that happens all the time, and we have a scheduled protest about it where people had a candlelight vigil and just stood in the park where he died with candles singing songs, and the cops came through and kicked the shit out of the vigil and destroyed the monuments and all the candle and beat the fuck out of people, and that happened over and over and over. And then that happened several times, and then we all just moved on and nothing happened. And I think the ambulance, the paramedic that gave him the lethal dose of ketamine got in trouble for a while, and then that was later listed, and nothing ever happened to the cops. And if I'm getting any detail of that wrong, correct me in the chat, in the comments, from sure. But like, no, the thing is, none of these details are unique. This is just shit that happens all the time here in the United States. Philando Castile, legally carrying a firearm, told the cop that pulled him over, yes, I am legally carrying this firearm. I'm letting you know that I have it just as a courtesy for you. Get shot dead because he's a black man with a gun. Never pulled that gun on anybody. Alex Peretti, out at a protest, sees ICE beating the fuck out of people. They disarm him forcibly and then shoot him 10 times in the back. And just like, we can go down the list of a million situations of tons of people, especially young black men, doing nothing wrong and being murdered for it. Just literally, dude, we just had a situation with a lawsuit that just of something that happened a little while ago of a young black kid who was accused of stealing water bottles from a corner store. Didn't steal water bottle, was accused of stealing water bottles from a corner store. Gets shot in the back while he's running away. We just had another situation of a mother who was accused of stealing diapers for her children. Police shot at her while she was driving away and killed her 1-year-old child who was in a car seat. Yeah. This is just what the fuck happens here in this country every day. And what do? Yeah. We have a couple of protests about it. The police beat the fuck out of people for protesting.
I don't give a fuck about people stealing when they're stealing what they have, what they need to survive. Like, it's
and you shouldn't. If you see someone stealing.
Yeah.
If you see someone stealing food or diapers, no, you didn't. That's the official stance, at least from my side of the screen, right? And like, but this is the world we live in now, and our protests are just very small and very coordinated and very scheduled and very permitted. And I'm not saying they have to be violent. I'm saying that like we need to be able to do something that actually really seriously makes a difference. And quit letting yourself be arrested over and over to prove that you will be arrested for something, to send a message that they're so corrupt. We know they're corrupt. We know they're evil. We know they're literal fucking demons. We get the message.
Yeah.
And I think that more can be done. But that's easy for me to say here from my chair in an air-conditioned house.
I think we should push as hard as we can for truly universal human rights. So everyone has human rights, no matter like whether they've been convicted of this, that, or the other, whether they're sitting in the White House, whether they're a judge or a street cleaner. Everyone should have the same level of human rights, and the politicians and the police shouldn't have extra rights just because of the positions they're in, because that's what leads to abuse.
We're here having a serious conversation. I'm real worked up. My wife just brought me Panda Express. The huge bunch of fucking super greens and chow mein and shit. What a sweet lady.
You're having a meal? A succulent Chinese meal?
A succulent Chinese meal.
Sounds fantastic.
Yeah, dude, it's just like what's really important to remember is that like we're sitting here talking about this and talking about how protests can be better, and it can be. But it is important to remember that every little bit really does help. And protest really does work. And so does fucking voting. I live in Oklahoma, which is the buckle of the Bible Belt, the most red state in this country. Every single county went for Trump. But what we don't remember when we talk about this place and how fucking awful it is that we have around a 50% voter turnout. And if of the people who didn't show up to vote, if just half of the registered voters who didn't show up in the last election had shown up and voted for Kamala Harris, the most red state in the union that has been red as fuck forever would have flipped. And it's showing up matters. Getting out on the front lines and being the person to throw a tear gas canister back at the bastards, being the one to get hit on the head with a nightstick, being the one to get shot with pepper ball, that's very romantic and is very cool. That's not everybody's place in the revolution. Some people need to be medics on the side. Some people need to be at home making content to rile people up. Some people need to be distributing food to their friends and neighbors. Some people need to be the community organizers. Some people need to be the people who are just sitting on their stoop, talking to their neighbors and building a community and helping people understand that they're not alone. Everybody has a place in this. And so, don't think that it has to be some big, violent, crazy thing with fire bombs and everything. Everybody can help. And I hope everybody understands that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think for everyone's safety, the less violence is better, because that administration is going to use every excuse that they can to perpetrate violence against anyone that they can, and that's only going to increase their level of terror and intimidation. That's what they want to be. They want to be the scary bullies. And in some ways, I think, what they did in Portland with just showing that we can show up in our silly costumes and we don't have to be afraid. I think that was actually really powerful. And I think
that was fun.
Gandhi, and I think of all the things that have been accomplished just by people standing up and doing what needed to be done. But I think one thing that I see the Republicans doing, which can be learnt from, is that they will take on the chin any I don't know if you guys have got that expression. It's that they're unfazed by any insults that are hurled. They don't mind looking stupid or being accused of this or that or the other, so long as they retain the power to do what they want to do. And I think when more left aspects of your society get into power, they need to be unafraid to use their power for the best, even if that means doing the things that especially if it means doing the things that the Republicans are tearing their hair out about. It's usually a pretty good guide to that's what's probably going to be the best course of action, I think. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happens when you have an ends justifies the means mindset. Is, when you've already accepted that you're willing to lie to push your agenda, when someone calls you a liar and when someone says that your reasoning makes no sense and points out all of the logical fallacies in your the structure of your political philosophy, it doesn't faze you, because you're not being sincere. You know that you're using dishonesty as a tactic and as a tool. So it's not really, but then I agree with you that it's like when progressives have a chance, have some kind of power, they need to be stronger and be willing to push things through with more force. I mean, it's even just like in a rhetorical sense, I've gotten a lot of flack over the last couple of years from people who feel like I'm being too rude to conservatives, and they feel like my tone it used to be more respectful. And I'm also like, I don't know where the fuck you're getting that. Like, from the jump, I was writing songs called "Shut the Fuck Up," and I don't know where you're getting that. Like, I've never really been treating these people with kid gloves, but I've never really been a person who I'm like being part of the tolerant left. Like, that's not who I consider myself to be, at least when it comes to dealing with intolerant bigots and Nazis. Like, I don't really mince words. I don't really go out of my way to be overly respectful to disrespectful people. I feel like respect is earned. I am kind to kind people. I am respectful to respectful people. I extend my empathy to empathetic people, and I reserve those things for people who deserve it. And the people who don't, I don't really waste energy on trying to win them over with a kind tone. And it really drives me nuts when people in the audience feel like they're doing something meaningful by expending energy tone policing the way that I deal with it. I'm just like, your priorities are out of whack. There are people who are you know, white supremacist ethnocentrists who are trying to kill people that they see as subhuman, and you're worried about me being not nice enough to those people. And that's I like straighten out your priorities, you know?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, definitely, definitely.
This, but I feel like we've been agreeing with each other for 20.
Yeah.
Just one last thing. I do think they do have a slight point with saying we need to not use the tools of the enemy, because if we become, like, we don't want to become them. We don't want to use their tactics. We need to use the power, but we can't behave in abusive ways just because it's been effective for them. So yeah. Anyway.
I think there's definitely a limit, because I definitely think I think it's useful to use some tactics to say, like, you fucking snowflake, you need to save space because you got offended by pronouns.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, thanks for the chat, lads. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing, Austin, and boys and girls, don't get vocalized.
Take care, man.
Thanks,
bye-bye.
Jason. Thank you so much. Take care.
And that was our show. I did write down, these are numbers that were presented by, I believe it was Now This that wrote this up. But I took notes of it because I was going to be calling my reps about this. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, it would take $20 billion, $20 billion to completely end homelessness in this country. So just bing, bang, boom, done. 20 billion bucks and no more homelessness in this country from the Department of Housing and Urban Development. According to food policy, it would take $50 billion a year to end world hunger. No more starvation, no more hunger in the world, just $50 billion a year would do it, and would be done. According to the Brookings Institute, it would take $160 billion to completely end extreme poverty in the United States. So, like, what we consider extreme poverty, what we have here, well below poverty line, 160 billion bucks. That's gone. It would take $200 billion to eliminate all medical debt in the United States. That's according to the Census Bureau. So, according to the U.S. Census Bureau, all the medical debt that we have, which is the number one cause of bankruptcy, number one cause of, like, Kickstarters and GoFundMes and shit, totally gone for $200 billion. Georgetown University reports that for $400 billion, we could completely fund all public schools, universities, and everything tuition-free for the next 10 years, the next decade. So that's a generation of people getting free school, free college, following their dreams, completely tuition-free for just $400 billion. If we did literally all of that, so tuition-free school, no more homelessness, no more hunger around the entire world, no more poverty, no more medical debt, all of that together would be $830 billion, which means if there were, hypothetically, somebody who was now the world's first trillionaire, they could do all of that and still have $170 billion left over. They could end hunger and homelessness and medical expenses and everything and still be absurdly wealthy. More money than any reasonable person could expend in 1,000 lifetimes. And yet, if you are accused of stealing diapers, they will shoot you while you're running away and kill your fucking children.
You're just jealous, Forrest. Just
That's
work
the
harder.
world we live in.
You're just jealous. What do you need his money for? What do you need his money for? Go out and get your own job, okay?
And that's what I mean. Like, honestly, fucking y'all, we already have so many examples of communities just literally just kicking ICE the fuck out without violence. Just literally, you are not welcome here, and we are going to escort you from our fucking homes. And we will not let you harass these people. We know it happens. We already have examples of people pooling resources and pooling money and shutting down their fucking economy, and not a dollar goes in or out for months at a time, and it works. We know it happens. There are so many more of us than there are of them. And we live in this world where they need our bodies. They need to grind our bodies into paste in order to make the machine run. And if we just had enough of us try to fucking stop that machine from running, to throw yourselves on the gears, throw yourselves against the levers, smash the fucking thing apart by withholding your participation and refusing to let it go on, there could be a real difference. So I'm not that kind of guy. I don't organize these things. I just see these things and want to try. So get together, call your friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
Build a community, make friends.
Oh boy. Well, that was nice. That was fun.
What a pleasant note to end on, I think.
No, good, for sure. Yeah. Yep. I hope I'm a trillionaire soon. I'm on my way. I'm working on it.
We're all just temporarily embarrassed trillionaires. There is no poverty.
Embarrassed trillionaires.
There's no such thing as poor people.
Oh,
we're all just we're that close. We just got to find the right bootstrap to pull. Everything sucks. The horrors persist, but you persist with them. We're in hell, but at least we're going through hell together. And I wouldn't rather have, I would rather have that other ways, but I wouldn't rather be here with anybody else. There's such beautiful people, especially you, Austin, who get us through these things.
Right with back at you.
Any final words of wisdom you got for everybody?
Eat the rich.
Hey, I'm hungry.
Yep.
Thanks so much for tuning in. That's our show for the night. Thanks so much to Austin for being a great co-host and a great friend. Thank you so much to Lux for being a great producer. Thank you so much to Paul for call screening. Thanks so much to our mods in chat and for keeping things simple and safe. Thanks so much for the people in chat, even the ones that suck. Thank you to our callers, even the ones that suck. By the way, that whole thing you talked about like not being like, I'm not going to make a video somebody else has already made it 1,000 times. We had that exact conversation when we were at that escape room, I remember.
Yeah. Yeah. I say it a lot.
We'll see you later, everybody. Bye.
Bye, everybody.